OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30 Friday morning, OTB AM. A very good morning to you, wherever it is you are this morning. Delighted to have you along with us. Hopefully it's not chucking rain wherever you are, but the country is feeling a little bit better about itself, I think, over the last few weeks, and maybe over the last 24 hours, particularly with the news that we might eventually be getting some people back in stadiums very shortly. Eoin, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
And Kerry made, obviously, the entire country feel a bit better about themselves, which is a topic we might get into a little bit later on, that actually there might be a chance that somebody could beat Dublin this summer. We might get into that a bit later on. I know you're itching, I know you're ready for action, and it's all he's spoken about for the last hour since he's been in the studio here, and we might get into it on air a little bit later on. But Friends Reunited on is really the obviously topic of the week, and the possibility that Mauricio Pochettino might go back to Tottenham.
I like what you did there.
See what's happening? You can't literally turn on any media at the minute without talk of it. But it's and also about Friends getting back together. It's on all the back of a lot of the papers this morning. There's loads of stuff about, like, here's one that I'll just pluck out of the randomness there from Jacob Steinberg in The Guardian, who says, unfinished business, Tottenham hold talks with Pochettino over shock return. I mean, shock return is, to put it mildly, don't do it, Poch, is my advice this morning. Please don't do this. You are a cut above Tottenham Hotspur. You're at a club that has every possibility of winning the Champions League next season. You're at a club with huge ambition. You've been linked to clubs like Real Madrid. Tottenham at the minute are the butt of every football joke. They're a punchline. So I urge you, don't do this. They're a basket case of a club. Their spending on is, having had a look at it yesterday evening, 17th net spending, 17th in the Premier League. And they're 7th. I mean, they've done the most Tottenham thing of all time this season by qualifying for the Conference League, or whatever it is. They've qualified by finishing 7th. Harry Kane potentially on his way out. If you're somebody like Son, you're thinking same direction. Is Gareth Bale going to hang around? Dele Alli obviously out of form. I know I've made the point in this show not that long ago that actually they would be a great club to get in and give them a bit of a lift. I'd still stand by that. Like, they finished 7th, and surely the only way is up. Surely they're going to get a bit of investment. But that's not for Pochettino. That's for Rafa Benitez or Tony Pulis or Sam Allardyce. Not for Poch.
Do you actually think Rafa would go to Spurs? Or do you think Spurs would go for Rafa?
Look, honestly, has to be an element to Tottenham. I honestly can't believe that people are taking these reports seriously. Mauricio Pochettino is going to get himself a gig. He's already at one of the top clubs in Europe. That's going to be his level for the next while, until he starts to Jose-style peter out of the game. That's not Tottenham's level. Like, they're not fishing in that. Links this morning on with Antonio Conte and Zinedine Zidane. I mean, have you ever heard such rubbish?
It's a bit of a stretch to suggest that either of those two would go to Tottenham, for sure. Pochettino, though, there is a connection there. It goes beyond the point of where you are in the Premier League. There is a history there. There is a situation where Mauricio Pochettino has been living in a hotel room in Paris. One of his sons and his wife are both living in London. He might want to be reunited with them, and he may want to be reunited with Tottenham Hotspur. He maybe feels that that's where his heart is when it comes to the height of his managerial career. So I can see why he might want to do it. But if you're looking at it in the cold light of day, is this a good career move for Pochettino? Probably not. Staying at Paris Saint-Germain, or if he can manage to get his foot in the door at Real Madrid, both of those jobs, you would suspect, would be better short-term options. You can go back to Spurs in a year or two if things go down the drain from your career. I think that's something that's been overlooked, is that Tottenham Hotspur, no matter what happens next, aren't guaranteed to suddenly race out of view and race out of the crosshairs of Mauricio Pochettino from a career standpoint. The reunion can happen at a later date. I think right now, I think I'm with you on this, that Pochettino going back doesn't make sense from his perspective. It makes great sense from Tottenham's perspective. Don't get me wrong. I think this would be brilliant, and it would tick every box to get him back in there. And it might just persuade Harry Kane to stay. Maybe just persuade him to stay. So it ticks all the boxes from Spurs' point of view.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised, by the way, no matter who's there, that Harry Kane ends up staying. That, like, it's a bit of a ploy to squeeze a bit of extra money into his contract. I think that is highly likely. I know that obviously he's been linked with some other clubs, but
you think he'll sign a new contract?
He does feel like a Tottenham for life player,
right?
I mean, that only becomes true when we see it out, and it's a fairly pivotal moment for him in that if he signs a 2 or 3 year deal at Tottenham now, he'll be 30 by the time that wraps up, and that's probably him for life. But I wouldn't tie in, Maurizio Pochettino going to Tottenham as the be-all and end-all for Harry Kane. Like, Daniel Levy offering him more money will be the be-all and end-all for Harry Kane. And I think there's every possibility that he remains there. But yeah, I do what are Tottenham going to achieve over the next few years? I know they've obviously under Poch managed to get to a Champions League final and came up well short, obviously, on the night. But I just can't believe that a manager with the potential of Pochettino, he's been linked with the Madrid job this week. Like, why would you take a step? And it's no insult to Tottenham to say that you're going to take a step so far down the ladder. They're not in the conversation within an arse's roar of winning the Premier League, for example, and by all accounts, given the level of spending that I mentioned just there isn't a chance of them getting anywhere near it over the next few years.
That last point notwithstanding, is that not the point of football management, to go into a club and actually improve them?
But I think, Owen, that's a Chelsea, let's say, or a Liverpool this season, or like even a Man United, in that like there's not much. Couple of players, if I could get a centre back in at United, if I could get a young fit centre forward, I can see how we might be able to tweak this thing. It's not tweaks at Tottenham.
But I think that's the appeal, isn't it? That you are going from a base of 7th and your first step is to, I guess, qualify for the Champions League again in a couple of seasons' time. With Manchester United, Chelsea and Liverpool, the margins are much smaller. Their next step is to win a Premier League title. With Tottenham, that's not the case. So there is automatically less pressure on you. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here, because I actually kind of agree with you that this wouldn't make much sense from Pochettino's perspective. But that's kind of why you would go into a job like Tottenham. It is, in one way, exciting, because there's been a little bit of wreckage left behind by Jose Mourinho. And the fact that they finished 7th while still being in a little bit of in a state of chaos would suggest to me that their potential is much higher than 7th, that they do have a squad of players who can challenge for the top 4, and that must be seriously attractive to any manager who comes into the club, like a Rangnick or something who might come into the club. But for Maurizio Pochettino, who has to leave Paris Saint-Germain behind in order to get the job, I'm not sure it holds the same attraction.
Are they, forgetting for a second about the manager, whoever comes in, are they a top 4? Let's say everybody stays, right? Do they bring anybody? The spending suggests probably not anybody. It's going to make a huge impact on them, and everybody stays. Are they a top 4 club next season, regardless of the manager?
No, I don't think so. I think that the top 4 is this season's top 4 again, if I was to predict it. But then again, I think we often have these conversations at the end of one season, and everything just seems so clear. Like we can almost predict 1 to 20 next season. It always seems at the end, those teams are definitely going to get relegated. Those teams are definitely going to make a push, and those teams are definitely going to challenge for the title. We're going to have a 4-horse race. Some years we've actually said we're going to have a 6-horse race for the Premier League title. It never materialises. Weird stuff always happens in a season. I can be sure that because I've actually said there that this year's top 4 will be next year's top 4, that won't be the case, because I'm always wrong about these things. We're always wrong about these things. And somebody else will bolt towards that. Chances are it'll be Leicester City who breaks the mould next season, but I would not be surprised one bit if Tottenham Hotspur do it, especially if they manage to keep Harry Kane. If they keep Harry Kane, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, but it is hooked solely around Harry Kane. Like,
but your question was based on that. If they keep everybody, and if they keep everybody, that squad is good enough to challenge for the top 4 and just about break into it.
Don't do a Poch, please. Like, think your career here. Think about your future prospects. Like Eoin said, like, do Mourinho on it. He's going to go and manage Portugal at some point. Look at Tottenham like you're Portugal and just leave it for a few years. Leave it until you're grey. Leave it until you have nothing left to offer the game and it's all been wrung from you. Do it at some point down the track, but just not now.
What do we think about the fact that they really haven't managed to squeeze the juice out of that new stadium yet? Like, that is a post-COVID plus point for Tottenham Hotspur. There are certain things here that like Jose Mourinho, I think, is a big factor. I think that was a really, really poor move. I think Daniel Levy, even entertaining these talks, has started to hold his hands up and say that was a bad move on my part. And then the fact that their brand new stadium, the entire thing that funds that and gets the best out of that, was taken away from you for 18 months. I think they're two pretty big factors from Tottenham. I would be hopeful that Tottenham will come back to being Champions League qualification challengers over the next couple of seasons. Well,
look, they probably have more of a chance than your shower on, let's face it, but I mean, I think that's the only thing that's going for them. And from the stadium point of view, like, yes, obviously once they can get paying punters coming back in the gates, that is going to help, but they obviously have a lot of money to pay off on that stadium, and what's happened over the last 18 months is going to set them back in a big way, which is another reason to think that Tottenham aren't going to be challenging for the top 4 anytime soon. just think they're a little bit of a basket case. The other thing is, on that point, and it's good news this morning, reported across a lot of the back pages about the return of crowds to stadiums in Ireland. It's going to start off as a bit of a dribble with 100 here or there. We're going to move into 200. There's going to be slight tweaks to that depending on the ground capacity. So if you've over 5,000, you can at some point start to let more crowds in. And certainly one of the big things that people have gotten onto this morning, that the FAI hoping to have 20,000 fans for our next home game for the World Cup qualifiers in September. So big news, great to see, and it all feels as if we're moving in the right direction. And I know you were at a game last week, Eoin, and you're going to be at games over the next while. But having been at the All-Ireland last year, it's grand been at it, but like when there's no crowds there, it's just totally devoid of any atmosphere. It's a different buzz.
Especially when the game gets good. Like, I'm sure from your perspective, when Mayo had that first half assault on Dublin, when you started to think, oh, could we actually be in for a game here? That's when you wanted a full Croke Park. And it's in those moments that you really miss it. And I think the same last Sunday with the third quarter comeback in Thurles last Sunday. That's when you kind of want to hear the crowd ratcheting up. You want to hear even the crowd who are suffering at that point trying to G their team up. Like, it's just...
the crowd are your commentary team when you're at the game.
It will make... I actually think that going back to having crowds will feel more significant than the change last year, which was our move towards having no crowds. Such was my experience of watching the FA Cup. It was like to use that verb again, it was an assault on the senses, to be quite honest with you.
So look, we'll have more on that, I'm sure, over the next weeks and months, but it's happening and it's great news, and more of that more where that came from, I'm sure, of the next while. 20 to 8 Friday morning, loads to come for you on the show this morning. You're watching OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. It's 7:42. Here's what's coming up. England is going to be the subject of Eoin's cheat sheet for the Euros in just a moment's time. Vinny Perth is going to join us after that, and primarily we're going to get stuck into City Chelsea with him, and he's loads of interesting stuff to say on that. He's been getting stuck into the analysis of it over the last while. We're going to tell you what's happening on the back pages as well, and Eoin's been out to speak with the Republic of Ireland international Rianna Jarrett as well during the week, and we'll bring it out shortly. Croatia will be the latest stop after England in Eoin's cheat sheet. That's at 8:35. Alan Quinlan is going to give us his depth chart of lines forwards this morning. We'll get his thoughts on a couple of other bits and bobs as well. That's at 20 to 9. A live crappy quiz coming your way at 9:10 this morning, and Richie's been in conversation with Tadhg Leader, who's been having a very interesting career between rugby and moving into American football kicking as well, and that'll be coming your way at 9:30 this morning. So that's it. Do keep your comments coming into us, whether it's Mauricio Pochettino to Tottenham or anything else you're having yourself this morning. Keep them coming into us on all the usual channels. But on England,
it is time for our England cheat sheet. Let's get that 90-second timer going. After our breakdown of North Macedonia yesterday, it is time to get into another of the plucky underdogs that have made their way to this year's tournament. Let's give you a bit of a background, first of all, on this country. England is a country which takes up part of an island off the coast of the Isle of Man. You might recognise the country for some of its exploits away from the football pitch. Edwina Curry and Draco Malfoy are both English, and Peter Andre was born in England. But we are here, of course, to talk about football. The England football team is known to their fans as the Three Lions, and you can sure as hell see why. They have done so well with the resources at their disposal, and this is their third European Championships in a row that they've managed to make it all the way to the group stages at. That is a group stage appearance for every Lion on the crest over the course of the last decade. The great thing about major tournaments is that there's always a fairy tale or two involved. England's Gareth Southgate is a work experience student who won a competition and has been allowed to manage the team at this year's Euros. Meanwhile, players such as Declan Rice and Jack Grealish failed to make the grade with Ireland, but savvy use of the granny rule meant England have generously accepted them into their fold. Whether it's driving on the left-hand side of the road or drinking tea with milk, those English people sure are a crazy bunch. Keep an eye out for fun moments of light-hearted banter, such as Harry Maguire being called Slabhead due to the fact that he's got a massive head. And get ready for their supporters to bring warmth and generosity to your football-loving heart this summer. England, football's coming home.
There you go. There you have it. I mean, after all that on, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying about England's prospects this in the Euros.
England's prospects in the Euros are...
They're going to win it?
I think a lot of people think England are going to win it. I haven't checked the odds, but I think they're favoured in a lot of the markets. I think people think that this is actually the moment when it's going to happen for them as a result of what happened in Russia, and their squad is absolutely stacked. It is sensational.
They are second favourites behind England, generally. And the group that they're in, obviously, you're going to be getting stuck into Croatia a little bit later on, Czech Republic and Scotland. Like, is there? I mean, I know I've actually. So when we did our tipping up the year thing, whenever that was it in January? I tipped England to win the Euros. Actually, I tipped England to win the Euros 2 years ago, if memory serves right. And then I had really no option but to stick with it when we breathed fresh life back into those again. But Scotland, like, it's not like a typical game. They should beat Scotland, obviously, but they get their tails up. I mean, there is a possibility that they don't get out of the group.
No, that's not going to happen. They will get out, they will top this group. They've got all their games at home except for the semi-final, which is a key point here. There's going to be fans in Wembley, those great English fans, as I mentioned there, to bring life and positivity to this whole tournament. The prediction here, if we want to get into the end point here, is that they will, and I'm saying this tentatively, that they will lose in the last 16 to Portugal, if I'm putting my neck on the line. I think there is every chance, though, that doesn't go the way a lot of people think, and I think England have a great chance of winning that game because, again, it's in Wembley. They've only got one game that won't be in Wembley, and it will be the semi-final. So I actually think and we had this conversation with another team during the week, they would be much better off to finish second in this group. But England being England, I think they need to get their chests out and they need to win all the games from the front. But all three of their games are going to be tricky matches. Czech Republic are on the bounce back, Croatia are still good, and Scotland is going to be this weird kind of same islands derby which we had with Wales in Euro 2016, which was this very fiery encounter, which was this cracking game. I know England won that, but Wales ended up going further than them in the tournament. So I think England will top this group, but I think they'll lose in the next round to Portugal because I think Portugal are just a better team than them, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them go all the way. We wanted to get through some of the key players in this, and I think a good way of doing this is actually just looking at the last team that Gareth Southgate picked for a knockout game at a major tournament. So this was the team that played in the semi-final against Croatia in 2018. So we'll go back to front here. Jordan Pickford in goal. He's going to stay in goal. Like, there may be a push from Dean Henderson if strange things happen over the course of the next few weeks, but I think Pickford will stay in there. Then
that was peak Pickford at that stage, wasn't it?
It was, and maybe it's a sign that that's a slight weakness, that not peak Pickford is still going to be number one goalkeeper for England going into this year's tournament. That back three will stay the same, assuming Harry Maguire comes to form, or comes to fitness, I should say. Harry Maguire on the left, John Stones through the middle, and Kyle Walker on the right. That back three is fairly solid, and actually one of their strongest assets to their team, in my opinion, when you look around at some of the other defences in Europe and the injuries that are afflicting so many teams. The drop-off, obviously, is significant. Maybe just more from a leadership perspective. If Harry Maguire's not there, it could be Tyrone Mings, it could be Conor Cody who comes in.
I think you're overlooking one key player, obviously, across that defence. Luke Ayling is obviously going to be.
Yeah,
surely.
Well, like,
I know we've not had this conversation before, but surely.
I mean, Luke Ayling.
Football men on would think that way.
They sure would. We'll see if he becomes a late call-up to the squad. Nathan Murphy would have loved nothing more than to see his name on that squad during the week. Then when it comes to a little bit further forward than that, if we look at the left and the right, first of all, Dele Alli will not be playing on the left this summer. He will not be playing at all this summer. Kieran Trippier will play on the right, I suspect. I think he'll nail his slot down, even if Trent Alexander-Arnold has started to show a little bit more form in the last couple of weeks. The left wing-back spot is going to be Luke Shaw's. So they are, that's the same defence plus Luke Shaw instead of Dele Alli. That, for me, straight away, is a step up from 2018. That midfield, then, again, this is a step up. You've got Jordan Henderson, Ashley Young, Jesse Lingard in there. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. It's probably going to be two midfielders rather than the three. I know Jesse Lingard may have been part of an attack there in reality. And Henderson, while he's been phenomenal for England and has shown his leadership qualities from Liverpool and translated them to England, wouldn't be surprised to see them go for Mason Mount and Declan Rice as their midfield too. But the gap between themselves and Henderson is hair thin, and it could go either way. And then the front three is where things are really interesting. Like, Harry Kane will still be there. Raheem Sterling started on that night, as we can see on screen. But who comes in beside Harry Kane? Who plays on the left and who plays on the right of the front three? A front three that now plays much more narrow than we've been expected to see them in previous years. This is one tweak that Southgate has made really effectively over the last little while. For me, I think it's going to be Phil Foden and Marcus Rashford. I know Raheem Sterling may have something to say about it, but it's I think in that system, as I say, with the little bit of there's less width required from those attackers when you've got Shaw and Trippier outside you. And I think Phil Foden, for me, is a banker. I think he's absolutely sublime, and I would pick Marcus Rashford. But what depth do they have?
I was Phil Foden. I can't believe we spent so little time talking about him, and he could be. I mean, you get your money on for player of the tournament potentially. But Marcus Rashford, somewhat controversial. Obviously, the injury, the lack of form. There are other options. I mean, some would say that Greenwood is a better option than him on at the minute.
Or Jadon Sancho. And maybe that's the way they go, especially if you're going to go with Foden on the left. A lot of people say Rashford is better on the left. So maybe considering Sancho and Greenwood have played a lot of their football on the right side of a three, you pick them ahead of Rashford. I think Rashford's experience is important, though, and I think when it comes to tournament form, this kind of comes into play with Harry Maguire as well. It's more than just the attributes that you have. It's about what sort of experiences have you had in the England jersey before, especially with the return of fans and that kind of appreciable sense of pressure. Like, this is like Euro 96 for England. I think this hasn't been spoken about enough. Like, it's just one game. Like, this is the third time I've said it, that won't be in Wembley. This, football is coming home is like a tongue-in-cheek thing, but this really is football coming home for the first time in 25 years. It is the closest thing they'll have had since 96. Like, this is a home tournament.
England coming home. That's the only difference between 96 as opposed to, but what are we saying? Like, we've covered all bases here. England are going to win the tournament. They're not going to get out of the group. They might get to the last 16. Put your neck in the block on. What's happening?
They're going to lose in the last 16 to Portugal.
Right. I'm still saying they're going to win it. Like, a squad of individuals obviously need to come together with such a, he might be on work experience, but he's just the man that England need, and I think they're going to get it done. Put your money down. We're going to be tipping up Croatia a bit later on, so stay tuned for that later in the show, and do keep your comments coming in. We've had plenty on our talking point at the top of the show about Maurizio Pochettino. Not all of them in agreement with either of us, it has to be said, and we might touch on those a little bit later on. But delighted to say that Vinny Perth is on the line. Good morning to you, Vinny.
Good morning, how are we doing?
Good, thanks. Good. We've you've been getting stuck into City v Chelsea tomorrow night. We're sort of thinking about it here and trying to figure out exactly which way it's going to go. Even reading some of the papers this morning, it's a lot of people still tipping up City for it, and they are favourites, obviously. Is it wrong, though, maybe as a kicking off point, and take us off where you want after this? Is it wrong to discount the recent results between the two of them? Or how do you know what's important from the last 2 or 3 games between City v Chelsea? What to factor in and what to discount?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think what we have is you have a match of two of the very best tactically in the game come up against each other in Tuchel and Pep Guardiola. For me, a couple of weeks ago, I think there's no doubt City in terms of the form were favourites. I still think they are going into the game, but the last couple of games haven't been perfect for City in terms of the preparation, and there'd be a small little seed of doubt in their mind. But they haven't played in both of them games, and this is where it gets sort of, for want of a better, not technical. Like, everyone is starting to understand the game now, thankfully, in terms of systems. But he played with a number 9 in the FA Cup semi-final, and he played 3-5-2 in the league game. And I think he was searching for something against Chelsea, because ultimately I think Chelsea tactically are the one team that caused them problems this year. Paris Saint-Germain done it a little bit in the first half. So I think Pep Guardiola is concerned about what Chelsea do in terms of their shape and their system. Chelsea play 3-4-2-1, and again, with 2 number 10s. Sometimes people say, they play 3-4-3 and all of this. But no, they play with 2 number 10s is effectively the key. And that causes Man City huge amount of problems. Yeah. And what's refreshing about Tuchel is that he's tactically challenging Pep Guardiola, and that's what we want to see. So if City were playing Liverpool on Saturday, I think you'd know the team and you'd know how Man City are going to play. I think there's no guarantee which way City are going to play on Saturday in terms of their own shape. So that's why it's sort of fascinating to see how it all plays out tactically.
Why do 2 number 10s cause Manchester City problems?
Because of, I suppose, first of all, most teams that come up against Man City on a weekly basis respect them so much that they drop off, let them have it. City play out with a back 3. Sometimes we've seen Cancelo going into that midfield position. City dominate the ball. if we go back to the Chelsea game now, it was under Lampard, so it's completely different. We done the game actually live, and it was fascinating to see. That was the first time we seen City really with that false number 9, and that was the day. And we said it live on air. We said it after it. That was the day we felt, wow, City are coming back to their very best, and they did, and they went on and walked the league. So. But the difference is very few managers go up against Pep Guardiola and actually challenge him and try and beat him. They all try, to be honest with you. Not all. Most of them try and be defensive. So they come up and whether it's 5 at the back, 4 in front of them, let City have it. So this is different. So the 2 number 10s of Mount and Pulisic have caused them huge problems in terms of when City leave the full-back areas or by and large in the new system that Pep has developed, he only has one number 6 or defensive midfielder, and the 2 number 10s of Mount and Pulisic will cause them huge problems. So that's where Pep has a big headache on his hands ahead of the game in the weekend.
Richard Dunn makes the point in one of the papers this morning in the Herald about City's shortcomings over the last few years. You've kind of hinted at it there as well, Vinny, about sort of maybe getting too wound up by some of the opposition that they're playing. So, like, with that in mind, what you've touched on it already in terms of formation and stuff like that. What does Pep do in terms of sticking or twist here? Is he learn the lessons of the last 2 or 3 games, and 2 games particularly, and stick with what he knows best, or shape up to match that Chelsea team? Or how do you see that panning out?
Well, to be honest, I don't know. That's the fascinating part, because he played in the league game. He played sort of 3 at the back. Now, people like Ake was playing and Laporte, they won't start. But I think he was searching for something. So he is. I think there is something in a seed of doubt in his mind about this Chelsea team. And I suppose if you look at Chelsea first, and I put together sort of I found 2 little sort of diagrams as such of Chelsea's setup. And if we stick them, because we can lose people by talking 3-5-2 and different systems. But Chelsea, obviously, in the dark blue, play with the 3, 4, and number 19 and 22 is Mount and Pulisic. Okay, and I suspect Timo Werner will play up front, and his pace down the sides of them will cause them problems. So that sort of setup of Chelsea with the 2 number 10s we just spoke about causes them problems, and he looks City without the ball play in that 4-4-2 system, and then when they have it, it's the false 9 with Foden, De Bruyne, all of these people turning up in different areas. But that Chelsea team with the ball is causing him problems that he has to react off it. Okay, so that's the way he'd prefer to play. That's the way he's won the league. That's how he got to the final, and that's why there will be a seed of doubt in his mind. And if you move on to the next slide and to go on to your question of where City are, that's generally how they play of late. It's 3 at the back, number 2 being Kyle Walker. I think he'll play. Cancelo's form hasn't been that good. Gundogan in midfield with probably Fernandinho. And at different stages, to get that midfielder to make the back 3. Sometimes you see John Stones in the sort of wide area. But so when they have the ball here, they're very good. Chelsea will go into that, and Mount will drop into midfield. And I think they'd be very good when they do that. But I think he'll be concerned when he doesn't have the ball. So that's where his challenge is. So it's a real tactical battle between the 2 of them. And I think if Pep sticks to his guns, he'll play the way that's on screen. Stones on the ball, as I said, it could be Zinchenko could go into midfield, and you'll find Gundogan that we've seen at different stages, or even Kyle Walker goes into that central midfield area, and he'll dominate the ball against most teams. And I think with the ball, that's what he'll want to do. That's exactly how he'll want to play, how his team will play. And he can do that with a back 3, and he can change his system, and that's the great big risk for Pep. Okay, that's the great big risk. So that's where the challenges lie for him. He'll want to play. He'll want to play that way. So listen, it's just a fascinating setup in terms of Tuchel giving him headaches.
And just we might lash up that Man City graphic again just for 1 second. The looking at Gundogan particularly, and we are going back now to January and that game that you mentioned there, but like the hay that he made that day coming from that position where you have De Bruyne and Silva maybe going in opposite directions to clear a path for him almost. Is that a thing that, like, look, a different manager, we've spoken about maybe slightly weakened teams and stuff like that, but is that system geared towards getting the best out of somebody like a Gundogan, like that box-to-box player who can get forward and get a goal like he got that day?
Yeah, and again, that's where we've spoken about so many different teams here. Liverpool, a lot of teams, the modern teams are building up in a back three. Doesn't mean they start with three, but they build up in a back three. So that allows that little bit of freedom for Gundogan to arrive, as you said, in the box. His goal-scoring run around that time transformed the team into a championship-winning team. Remember where they were coming from, where everybody had written this City team off. So yeah, that's crucial. But remember, what's important about that is the movement of Foden turning up. Sometimes he's centre forward, sometimes he plays in that left wing position. Bernardo Silva and Mahrez are both wide right, and De Bruyne will turn up at different stages in different areas. So it's very difficult for most teams to defend against that. But I think Chelsea's setup probably suits that, because when they drop off Mount, it means Jorginho has that freedom to protect in front of the back three. So it's fascinating. But I think what City will look to do is, we've seen Rudiger and Azpilicueta being brave and going in after people. So don't be surprised if you see an incident where, say, Zinchenko goes in behind because Azpilicueta has gone in after Kevin De Bruyne or a Phil Foden and left space in behind them. So that's where City will look to exploit them. But as I keep saying, City, I want City to win the game. I think this is an opportunity to confirm their greatness and Pep's greatness, in terms of, not that Pep's greatness in question, but I mean this team. And I love when the great teams win trophies. When Manchester United won the treble, or with different teams over the years, I hope they win. But Chelsea and the two number 10s will definitely cause City problems, and it is set up to be a bit of a tactical masterclass from the two of them. So I don't know I know Chelsea's style of play, and I know who's going to play more or less. You know, you can have James in different positions. You can have Azpilicueta, Ziyech, Havertz could play, but we know what Chelsea are going to do. We just don't know what City are going to do yet. And does Pep overthink it and make a mess of it, as we've seen once or twice before?
Yeah, and we've also seen the opposite, right? Like it can be the big day, come at the man, and all that sort of stuff. With all that in mind, who it feels like you're leaning like everybody else a bit to City, and not discounting, but disregarding almost the previous two results.
Yeah, I just think that two things. When you look at even Manchester United, what they haven't been able to do is their form. You can't turn it off for a couple of weeks. And Chelsea have fallen into the Champions League by default because of what Leicester have done, probably. And their results haven't been that good over the last couple of weeks. That would be a concern. Now, City also switched off a little bit after winning the league, and that's what you do sometimes when you win a league. But they came back, and I think they beat Everton. Was a 5-0 the other day. I think that will send a great message in the club. But I'd be worried about Chelsea's form over the last couple of weeks. But at the same time, they have a chance because of Tuchel. They have a real chance of causing City massive problems. And when you talk about the very top games, we can have a hunch. I can have a hunch that I really think City are the best team this year, etc. in Europe. They'll go on and win the game. But we're talking about Mason Mount, Pulisic, Timo Werner, somebody, one little mistake or one bit of great play, and they're 1-0 up, and that's what happens at the highest level. It's very, very difficult to call. I would say it's a 60-40 in favour of City, but I would say a month or two ago, we were probably talking about if you told this was the final, it would have been 80-20. I think Tuchel and his tactical know-how has really closed the gap, and we've a real battle on our hands in the final.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Your point about the bit of individual brilliance is every top analyst get out clause, Vinny, for listen, you can't legislate for a moment of magic.
Yeah, like you have to. Mason Mount is that good. Phil Foden could have played for the great Barcelona team under Pep. So you can't stop something like that happen.
Yeah.
A corner, Silva's brilliant from attacking corner, so that could change games, little moments like that. So I'm taking that get out clause. Yeah.
We'll give it to you. A couple of quick hits on some speculation this morning. Maurizio Pochettino to Tottenham. I've been playing with him this morning. Don't do it. That it's a major step down for a manager of his ambitions. What's your thought on that?
I don't know whether that's a setup or not, but Pochettino going back. Listen, I think it doesn't. It's a difficult job at Paris Saint-Germain. I think he it doesn't surprise me he's being linked back to the club. It doesn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me he went back. I'd like to think
bonkers move for him though, surely, Vinny, at this point of his career.
Yeah, but it's okay for us all as analysts to say that, okay? But you don't know the affection people have for certain clubs, the link to living in London, his family, all of that stuff. I mean, is he going to be offered a Real Madrid job? If he was offered that job, that's bonkers as well in terms of the rebuild that's needed there. By and large, managers don't get jobs unless something has gone wrong at a club. So, yes, you could question that squad. Is it good enough for Spurs and that? And I understand that. But wasn't that long ago that they were sitting top of the league or they were in Champions League spots? Yes, there's a rebuild needed at Spurs, but I don't. I think it's, I think it's too easy to say why would you go back there. It's still one of the top jobs in European football.
You think?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because, like, look at the stadium, look at the infrastructure around that club, look at the players they have. Yes, they're short of a couple of players, absolutely. But we can't link Dele Alli to Paris Saint-Germain and then say, well, Dele Alli's not good enough. For example, the right manager, the right people in the club, anything can happen.
Which is a more likely reunion, Vinny? Maurizio Pochettino and Tottenham, or Vinny, Perth and Dundalk?
There was the setup. I seen it coming. Listen, look, I've been a bit like Pochettino. I haven't got my hair cut until I get a job. Okay, so he said the same thing. No, I suppose on a serious note, a bit like Pochettino. Look, we all have a grower for a certain club. To be honest, I've been like him. I haven't slagged off Dundalk since I've left. I've been very consistent. I've obviously had my own hurt personally, and I've spoken to people personally about it. But in the media, I think I've said very little other than there was a difference of opinion in terms of the future of the club. I could sit here and say, wasn't I right? But I think there's been that much bad press around Dundalk. I think there's been that much bad press around the players that I'm hurting for them players. People like Brian Gartland, Chris Shields, I could list a whole lot of them, Pat Hoban. There's no way them players are happy with where they are at the moment. A lot of pride is hurt in that club. So if you're a manager, and particularly one in Ireland, which I found, it's very difficult to get, or a coach, to get work in this country. So one of the top jobs in the country comes available, you'll consider it. But it's nothing more than that at the moment. And look, newspapers find different stories. We all do it. It's part of life. But
is that a come and get me, please? And you trying to read between the lines?
No, it's not, because I don't need to do that. I have a relationship with people within the club that I don't need to make a come and get me plea. Listen, and if I sound big-headed, I'm sorry, but like in the last 8 years, I've 5 league titles, 2 FAI Cups, 2 League Cups, over 40 European games of experience. So clubs in Ireland or clubs like Dundalk should be interested in someone like Vinny Perth. But that doesn't mean I'm going to get any job. And I'm actively looking for work in and outside of football. I'm very close to a couple of projects other than Dundalk. Spoken to other clubs only this week outside of Ireland. So it's a long-winded answer of saying to you, I just don't know. There's nothing imminent or nothing about to happen, and I wouldn't imagine I'm on any shortlist at the moment, because my understanding is there isn't really one at the moment.
Okay, well, look at it again. We will keep a watch and brief on that. Really enjoyed your analysis earlier as well. Thanks a million.
Thanks a lot, lads, and enjoy the weekend, and the final should be interesting.
Enjoy the football. Yeah, thanks a million, Vinny. Perth, as always. Great stuff there, getting stuck into Chelsea City and plenty more as well. It is 8:10. It's Friday morning. We've got a jam-packed show still to come right here on OTB AM. We're going to hear from the Ireland football star Rianna Jarrett. Live crappy quiz coming your way a little bit later on. I mean, you'll want to hang around for that. And we're going to be talking the Lions depth chart with Alan Quinlan a little later too. But we're back after these with Friday Sports Pages.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
The pale blue dot, it's called, from I think it was 6 billion kilometres away, and the Earth is is 1 pixel in the photograph, blue pixel. And I think to myself, everything that has ever existed on planet Earth is in that 1 pixel. So why do my little problems matter at this particular moment in time? So I used to adopt the same for sport. If something happens in a match, sure, who cares? But I gotta tell you, there's been moments where I have thrown that pale blue dot photo out the window.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
At Online Tradesmen, we've never been busier. And if you're a trade professional, there's never been a better time to join us. Access over €17 million worth of jobs nationwide every month, along with e-learning and other supports. Need a website for your business? It's included in your membership. And on average, Online Tradesmen members get up to 10 times their fee back in new sales, marketing tools and savings. Apply today at onlinetradesmen.ie. Online Tradesmen, the home of qualified trade professionals.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Automower.
Automower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Automower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
First up, a Go Loud original from News Talk.
Get all the news you need to start your day with First Up, the podcast that brings you stories, analysis and interviews with the top newsmakers. First Up, available each weekday morning from 7 a.m. on Go Loud.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Look, I think in the later stage of my career, Dublin, for me and what Dublin were looking at, we were looking at All Irelands. We weren't like whatever, we'd won whatever 7 or 8 or 9 of them in a row. My first couple, absolutely. I remember we beat Kildare, one of my first Leinster titles, 2009. I was playing in full backline that day. It was an amazing match against Kildare. That was kind of peak Geezer. And as you said, Pat Gilroy's first year with Dublin was a brilliant Leinster final. 80,000 people at it. We won by 2 or 3 points. That was amazing. I'd be lying if I said the last 2 or 3 Leinsters we won where we would have beaten Laois or Westmeath. Well, we had moved on. Our focus was on trying to win All Ireland. And I think that's natural that as a team kind of develops and goes down that road. But the Leinster Championship for Dublin, it hasn't been overly appealing for our supporters, for the players, because there needs to be that competition there. And that's why you can see there are green shoots with what Meath are doing. You can absolutely see that. And already this season, you'd expect them to get back to Division 1 now. And then on the flip side, you're going, well, Kildare, look at the underage players they have. Jack O'Connor's gone in, an All-Ireland winning coach, and you're going, right, Jacko's going to have Kildare back in the mix. And then Kildare just seemed to be, they beat Cork in their first game. They go, right, Jacko really has this team going. And then they go and lose to Clare and Newbridge, deservedly so, on Sunday. And it's that kind of consistency. At least Meath are on that path. Like I say, they've taken over as the second best team. They're still a way off Dublin. There's no point in trying to dress that up. But all that Meath are doing is trying to maximise their potential and maximise their underage players coming through, Jordan Morris and these guys. And you can see that progress. And that's great to see. And can Jacko get that from Kildare? Can Mike Quirk do that with Laois? It's not easy, but like you say, when mentally, if you're a player, they're going, "What? So we're playing the Leinster Championship, we're playing fucking Dublin in the first game." It's a hard sell.
Two of the best footballers and most interesting analysts as well to emerge from the game, even over the last few weeks. The football pod there with Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran, and one of the many topics that lads got stuck into. Meath, for some reason. I mean, look at you, seen Tom Rooney in the middle. That's the explanation for it. It's episode 3 of the football pod, and it's available right now. You can listen to it on the OTB Sports app or wherever it is that you get your podcasts, and plenty more in there as well, obviously, including whether, as Paddy was talking about there, whether Leinster medals mean anything to him. So plenty of comments coming in, by the way, in our chat about Maurizio Pochettino a little bit earlier on. Will on YouTube saying that you could be overrating Poch. Not winning the league with PSG is a poor enough indictment. Kieran O'Callaghan says that I think that his stock has fallen significantly in 2 years. I don't think that he can be regarded as an elite manager at the minute. Might do well in the next job, but needs to up his game. And there's a lot of comments along that sort of line on that people are not all aboard the Maurizio Pochettino train, that they're actually saying that Tottenham are Pochettino's level.
All the more reason to stay at Paris Saint-Germain then, and actually overachieve if that's what people think. If they think that Tottenham is his level, then you may as well ride this out and try and get back to a higher level, and no better way to do it than having a literal state fund your transfer business in the summer, and one of the best squads in Europe with which to do it. Because what, does his stock suddenly rise again if they win Ligue 1 next season? I'm not necessarily sure that that's even the barometer for success with Paris Saint-Germain. So
yeah, I mean, it might be if they've lost it this year, or he goes to Madrid and makes an absolute balls of it, and suddenly Zinedine Zidane is like the greatest coach that's ever existed, and then he might get a move to a huge club like Tottenham.
Do you have a bee in your bonnet?
I've nothing. Just the whole Super League stuff, like all of this nonsense.
There is. It's back to the Super
I tell you what. It's a good question on, and it's only now that you've asked it, it's really come to my mind. We've just come from a clip there at the GA where we're talking about Meath, and there's a lot of conversations on here about Kildare as well. Why are we talking about these teams? Like, they're also Rans. They're nobodies. They're not contenders.
Oh, that's very harsh.
And like, on that note, Isolt Cody was in touch to say that, morning to Isolt, Paddy took the step down to Westmeath and it wasn't a disaster, so don't mock Poch. I mean, you say step down, I mean, I say step up.
He was literally using a helicopter to go to his new job.
Did Westmeath need Paddy, or did Paddy need Westmeath on?
There you go. Exactly. It was very symbiotic. I think you're being a bit harsh on Tottenham this morning.
Why? They're rubbish. They're almost as bad as your shower. I think, if anything, I've almost been generous to them.
Yeah, they're much better than an irrelevant team. I think everybody's interested in how Tottenham did.
No, it is true. We'll see how they get on in the Conference League next. What's it called? The Irish Independent, some brief headlines for you this morning. A good chat there of Longford Town's new hotshot A. Dervin, and how he's driving Longford Town to good things. Solskjaer to get a new contract despite United's final failure is the other line there, and also the return of fans to grounds. The Star FAI hoping for 20,000 in the autumn, writes John Fallon there in the Star this morning. Also some news on some of them. The Packy Bonner, who's a new reinstated director at the FAI, is to approach Brian Kerr about a role back at the association, so that will be interesting to watch over the next while. And obviously more reflections there on all the European action, including obviously the big game tomorrow night. That's the case also in the Irish Times this morning. Rashford contacts police over at least 70 racial slurs, and there's more of that across the back pages this morning. Disgusting stuff, including from a teacher in the UK who decided it was okay to publicly get in touch with anybody and racially abuse them, and there's more of that across the back pages for you this morning. And Tottenham bizarrely holding talks with Pochettino is there as well. The Herald this morning, Solskjaer to get new deal. It says there, and Kieran Whelan, Dublin versus Kerry rivalry is alive and kicking on, he says this morning. And we discussed Kieran's article last week, obviously. Inside, he says, Peter Keane's men, I think, will take a psychological lift from the nature of their second half comeback. 7 points down early in the half following Cormac Costello's point. Kerry made Dublin look average. Not too often we say that. And again this week on, Kieran Whelan is right.
Yeah, it's interesting actually thinking about that in the context of what we were listening to Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran saying a moment ago. This idea of the Leinster Championship being a contest at some point soon. So you look at a team that managed to come back against Dublin last week, who looked at times last week like they're as good as Dublin and Kerry, but yet Kerry have been caught in their own provincial championship. Now, granted, Cork are better than, okay, maybe Meath people might disagree with this, but I think Cork are better than every team in Leinster with the exception of Dublin. But at the same time, they're not that much better to the point where Dublin.
Why are we saying that
hammering
Meath are the best, the other best team in Leinster?
I don't know. But anyway, my roundabout point of saying this is that something doesn't tally here, that Dublin have a ridiculous stranglehold on Leinster when we see with other teams that have been able to put it up to Dublin at times get caught in their own province. It's happened to Mayo as well over the last few years.
Are we looping this back to Kerry at some point?
I'm not. But that's my point.
They're getting a great psychological lift. Like what happened last week, the late goal, fully deserved, possibly should have even won the game, is great news for you lads and the neutral.
WTF are you on about? It says in our doc. Division 1 last year, en route back to Division 1 this year. Tommy Rooney
on the doc, will you stop distracting this man from his
fuming with this idea
that
Cork might be better than Meath.
Meath are also runs. They are the Tottenham of GA.
My point is that the Leinster Championship is this weird thing that shows up Dublin's brilliance in a way that actually isn't in line with their dominance at All-Ireland level, which seems a ridiculous thing to say considering they're going for 7 in a row. But I just don't understand how they can consistently beat teams by 20-something points when their contemporaries or teams that have been able to hold the candle to them at times have often got caught and often got beaten in their own provinces. It's just this... The way they manage to dominate weaker teams is incredible.
Psychological lift from what happened last weekend, and there's no two ways about it. And I think that anybody who was in any doubt, and yes, a bit like the City conversation we're having, there are some players to come back into that Dublin team. Of course there are, but suddenly the gap looks less.
Yeah. It does.
I think, yes, it does. Is as good as we're going to get out of that man this morning. Last one for you is the Telegraph. Picture Kieran Kilkenny there ahead of the Champions League final this weekend. Timo Werner. They are doppelgangers, right? Am I the only one that sees that on? Are you?
Who? Timo Werner and who?
Kieran Kilkenny.
Yeah, you are very much the only person who sees that.
I'm gonna before the show is out, I've done a split pick of these two.
This is as worse as like your attempt to sort of stoke some sort of weird conversation there 5 minutes ago.
I'm going to talk to Rianna Jarrett.
Werner and Kilkenny, terrible shout.
When that's done, I'm putting that split pick up of the two lads and doppelgangers.
Looking forward. You'll definitely get 2 likes for that on Twitter.
22 minutes past 8. I won't get that on. Let's face it. Eoin has been catching up with Rianna Jarrett in Abbottstown this week. That it was the launch of the Intersport Elvery's FAI Summer Soccer Schools programme. The Summer Soccer Schools return to over 300 venues across Ireland across July and August, and aren't we delighted for it? The cater for boys and girls aged 6 to 14. It'll be a fun and inclusive environment is what it says in front of me. Training provided by FAI accredited coaches.
OTB AM.
All right, we are here with Rianna Jarrett. Rianna, how are you keeping?
Yeah, no, I'm good, thank you. How are things?
All good. So, how have the last few weeks been for you? Obviously, there's been a bit of time for change in your club career.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. Obviously, we're about 10 days post-season now. So, finished the season with a cup game, and then obviously the news broke that I was being released from Brighton. But for me, I've just been having a little bit of downtime. Obviously, been a long season, a lot of football played, but now my focus has shifted to the double header we have coming up against Iceland.
Yeah, there should be cracking games. How does the news get broken to you over the last few weeks?
So we have a talk, we have meetings. I had contact with the coaching staff, and obviously they let us know their decision, and then there's options there for feedback or conversations. But no, I had an open and honest conversation with Hope Powell, the manager. It was a good talk. I had a great year with them. It was a great learning curve, but obviously time for something new.
How do you feel during that conversation?
I suppose no one likes to hear that they're being released, but for me, I knew it was coming. I knew that I need to be playing. The manager knows that I need to be playing, and unfortunately I wasn't getting the game time that I wanted or that she wanted to give me. But that's football. Things change all the time, season to season, especially in the women's game. There's a lot of change going on. So for me, as I said, it's been a great experience. Brighton were a fantastic club. I couldn't have asked for a better club to be involved in, especially with all the COVID restrictions and not being able to get home as often as maybe would have been possible in previous years. It was a fantastic club, and I've learned a lot about the game, about myself as a player and myself as a person. So it's definitely an experience that I'll cherish.
What was the biggest takeaway from playing in the WSL?
I suppose it's just the the speed of the game, the level of the game, and I suppose the quality of players as well. Obviously coming from the Women's National League here in Ireland, it's not quite that level. So I've learned to adapt. I've learned to adapt my playing style. I've learned to adapt to different opposition, different opponents, and then what different games require. And for me, that's a lesson that I'll carry with me for the rest of my career.
That's interesting. So it's almost, is there more opposition analysis? Is there more work going into analysing your performances afterwards when you talk about trying to come up against different sorts of opponents at that standard? I think when you go into a full-time environment, there's more resources available, and obviously there is more focus, and I suppose it comes down to the finer detail. I suppose there's players coming in every year, top quality players, and the quality of players in the league is getting higher and higher every year. So I suppose the focus shifts to not only team analysis but also individual work, unit work, and for me, obviously, we're exposed to that at international level and briefly with club before I moved to Brighton. So it's just, I suppose, improving the overall knowledge of the game, and I suppose being able to react quickly to what's gone on the weekend, that you're back in the next day, kind of no time to dally on a good result or a negative result. What was the best thing about being a full-time athlete at this point? Because I guess it was your first time going into a fully professional setup. I suppose the biggest thing for me is I went from working a 9-to-5 job, kind of, you can say football was on the side, so trying to juggle my trainings, trying to juggle my matches, trying to juggle my work schedule, as well as my extra kind of gym work, extra fitness work. And I think for me, going into a full-time environment, that's all taken care for you. All you have to worry about is your performance, and obviously working with the management and the strength conditioning coach to get the best out of you. I think I've an extra 8 hours in the day where I didn't have previously, and that was probably the biggest thing for me. I wasn't, I suppose, chasing my tail on a weekly basis. I had some downtime, and for me that was probably the strangest part, was having time to just kind of think about things or just kind of relax and take my mind off of football then as well. What were you doing with the downtime? So I most recently bought a PlayStation 5. So I suppose I switched off completely. But no, I was fortunate enough that the first half of the season that I was living with Megan Connolly and Denise O'Sullivan, so we had a good household, and even though COVID restrictions were there, obviously we know each other from playing international football, so that was fantastic. But we also had kind of like a little coffee club in Brighton, so just takeaway coffees, walks along the seafront, and it was nice, I suppose, to have friends over there and to be able to switch off from football together and not just be stuck, I suppose, thinking about football 24/7. What's the PS5 like? Oh, it's fantastic. Is it? I mean, I haven't had a games console since I had the Xbox 360. Oh, that's a big step up. Yeah, big step up. So I used to play the PS4 with my brother and stuff. So I suppose I really got it more to connect with my two brothers and my friends back home. Obviously playing games with them, you chat away with them for hours and the time would just pass. So for me, that was probably the main reason why I got it. But also I do enjoy playing games consoles as well, and sure, why not? What are you playing on it? Call of Duty, FIFA, and I recently downloaded Crash Bandicoot as well. Okay, so, the classic. Yeah, like, absolutely, really. Have to have the classics as well. And who do you play with on FIFA mostly? So it'd be my twin brother Jordan. No, I mean your team. What team? Yeah. I kind of chop and change. I'm an Arsenal fan, so I don't pick Arsenal because they're not great. So I kind of swap between Dortmund and Bayern, really. Right. Those would be my two teams. Solid choice. On the WSL, how good are the likes of Chelsea and Manchester City? Oh, they're fantastic. I mean, you seen Chelsea. They were unbeaten for so many games. Obviously, we managed to beat them 2-1 with Brighton, but even that game was fantastic. I think the game was 1-1 with an hour gone, and they bring on like Frank Kirby. They bring on Harder and G. I mean, they're bringing on 3 world-class players, and I think just to be able to have that calibre on your bench, never mind on the pitch, is fantastic. But you look at the investment that they're putting into the game, and that's what it's all about. You look at, they're bringing in the Americans. You looked at not so long ago when Chelsea brought in Sam Kerr, obviously the biggest transfer in women's football, and I think as much as the women's game grows and as much as the money is pumped into, I think the only way teams are going to be able to keep up with those is if they invest the money as well. You look at Arsenal, they were top of the top for how many years, and they've kind of drifted a little bit away. Obviously they got Champions League football again this year, which is fantastic, but it'll be interesting to see what they're like next year. Obviously changing manager and losing a few players as well. Because that was the incredible thing, I'd imagine, from your perspective, is that you weren't just making the step up to the WSL, the WSL was also making a step up this season. It was like a runaway train and you were on the train.
No, obviously it's fantastic. As a player, you want to put yourself up there against the best. You want to see where you stand, and obviously I'm fortunate enough that I got to play against the likes of Man City, Man United, Arsenal this season, and there's a lot of lessons that I've learned from those games, and seeing those players at the top and seeing what they do and where they are, and I suppose seeing the gap between myself and them, I suppose, would be the biggest thing.
What happens next for you?
So obviously we've the double header against Iceland, so my focus is solely shifted on that. Obviously looking to get into camp, and I'm looking to get a solid performance, and we're looking to have a positive camp leading into the qualifiers in September. I have an agent that's working on the offers that we've received at the minute, and hopefully in a few weeks' time we'll know where I'm heading. But for me, it's just important to find a club that I'll be happy with, that I can play, and that I can get back to playing week in, week out.
I presume there wouldn't be any limit to the borders that you'd cross to go play football. Obviously, a couple of your teammates have played in Italy over the past couple of seasons. Obviously, a few of them have played in the United States. The game is global now, properly global, where you can make a good living no matter where you go. Yeah, obviously the women's game is growing in all countries. It's even growing here in Ireland. But for me, it's about not rushing into a decision and finding a team that suits me. Obviously, managers look for different things and different personnel, and obviously each season, each team are looking for different fits. So for me, it's about finding out as much information as I can about teams, and then hopefully finding the right fit for me, where I'll be in a position where I can grow as a person. I have a lot more to learn, and I feel that once I learn, I have a lot more to give as well. On the international team then, it's been obviously a really interesting couple of years. The disappointment of the last qualification campaign was there, but from your own standpoint, it was interesting watching the two Germany games, for example, where in the first one you were up front on your own, at sometimes chasing a cause against a team that were in the ascendancy for the majority of the game, and then I think in the second game there was two of you up front basically. How did those two experiences compare, and not which one do you prefer, but which one do you think gets the best out of you as a striker? Well, obviously as a striker you want to be involved, and as a striker you don't want to be isolated. You don't want to have gaps between you and the other units, and I think that was the important thing. I think we learnt that from the first Germany game, that if there is gaps, that they will exploit them, and I think we learned that lesson early on in the first Germany game. That we tightened things up going into the second half, but obviously at that point the damage was already done. So I think for us going into the second game, it was like, how do we set up bets to stop those gaps, to limit their free flow and play, and I think we done that in the second game, and I think we were in it up until they got the third goal. Obviously we're pushing for an equaliser at that point at 2-1 down, but I think for us, even though the games were close to each other, as in only 2 months between them, I think there was still a lot of growth between us, between the first game and the second game, and obviously you learn your lessons from the first game, and I think that showed in the second Germany game, and I think for us that's the important part. Obviously we've the qualifiers coming up now in September, where it's going to be difficult games, and it's about learning on the spot and bringing that into the next game, and I think we've already shown that in quick succession we can grow. Even if you look at the Denmark game and the Belgium game, there was a lot of growth between those two games, and those two games were back to back, and I think that's exactly what the qualifiers are going to be like, and we're looking to do the same in this double header against Iceland. Is it fair to say that there's almost a learning experience in having to play without the ball? Like obviously against those teams they're going to have quite a lot of possession, and then from your point of view it's pressing from the front quite a bit. I presume that can be an exhausting experience at times against those teams. Yeah, I think obviously we're a small nation, and we're growing every year, every game, but we know that we're going to go into those sort of games without the ball, but that's about what we do. I think there's different ways that you can play without the ball. You can invite pressure where you're getting deeper and deeper, and that's something that we're trying not to do, because I think if you drop deeper and deeper and invite that pressure, eventually the pressure is going to tell, and they're going to get their goals. So for us it's about, yes, we don't have the ball, but there's so many ways that we can impact the game and affect the game without the ball. We can force them into areas that we want to force them in. We can try and win the ball high up, but obviously it's different opposition calls for different tactics. But for us at the minute, we're looking to master a formation that we've recently set up in, and we're just looking to improve. Each game we play, there's options to learn, but then there's also positives to take from each game as well, and I think with a combination of both, I think we'll be in a fantastic place come September, and it's just about pushing on from there then. Yeah, things seem certainly in a good place. Rianna, great to chat to you. Best of luck with the two Iceland games, and best of luck with your future as well over the summer. Thank you very much.
OTB AM.
That's the Ireland striker Rianna Jarrett chatting to Eoin as it was announced that the FAI Summer Soccer Schools are returning to over 300 venues across Ireland in July and August, and they cater for boys and girls between 6 and 14 in a fun and inclusive environment. Training provided by FAI accredited coaches, and I'm sure if you head along to fai.ie you'll get all the good stuff up there in terms of registration. Now, just before we spoke to Rianna there, we were talking about the likeness of Timo Werner and Kieran Kilkenny. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Look, doppelgangers, aren't they? Come on.
This is the worst shout of a doppelganger I've possibly ever seen.
Look at the eyes. Look at the eyes and the eyebrows.
Did you make this image? Did you mock this image up during?
Oh, I'd done this months ago. I'd been through a spell and I'm still sort of in it, where I'm noticing likenesses between. I find myself looking at sports people and going, God, who does that person remind me of? And then doing up a split pick and sending it on to yourself and Tommy, who don't bother responding to me, obviously. But
because it's a terrible shout.
That's a great shout, pal.
It's like, I mean, it's maybe a third cousin. Maybe that's the relation I would put on between those two faces. But they wouldn't even come as close as brothers, let alone doppelgangers at this point.
Certainly first cousins. Now, are we getting straight into Croatia, or do you want to do your England jerseys first?
We'll come back to the jerseys at the end when we do the Croatia jersey. Let's get our 90-second timer for Croatia. So they are an essential part of an Irish tradition every second year, where we look at them and say, how the hell are they doing it with 4 million people? This time they topped the qualifying group involving Wales, Slovakia, Hungary and Azerbaijan, but no other table topper in qualification scored fewer goals than Croatia. Now, they were knocked out by eventual champions Portugal after extra time in the round of 16 at the last Euros, but 2 years later they of course went all the way to the World Cup final in Russia. Euro 2020 then could have been a last dance for some of that team, a chance to finally get over the line, but goalkeeper Daniel Subasic packed it in, Mario Mandzukic has packed it in, and Ivan Rakitic has packed it in. Luka Modric, though, is very much still on the go, and at the age of 35 he has found another wind this season. The delay of over 1 year to this tournament would have done him no harm whatsoever. And Croatia have scoured the length and breadth of King's Landing for new players, and the next generation actually doesn't look so bad. They've got a who's who of young players who will pop up on your transfer gossip sections for the entire summer. Expect to see Nikola Vlasic and AC Milan in the same headline. Josep Brekalo and Arsenal look a match made in tabloid heaven, and Dujic Chatela will be the last thing West Ham fans think about at night during the transfer window. It's worth stating again, 4 million people, how do they do it? Let's have a look at the kits then, finally. The home kit, as ever, a perfect tablecloth for a happy occasion. However, if there is a death in the family, you might want to go for the away jersey. That is Croatia and your 90-second cheat sheet. While we're on the topic of jerseys,
rock up to the funeral, like.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at the England jerseys. This is what Nathan Murphy's family will be wearing this summer. And the away jersey is actually really nice.
They're
really nice.
I'm sorry, they are both very tasty.
I'm not going to lie. They do it well in England. So England and Croatia, the first two teams there in Group D. Just to go through some of Croatia's form going into the tournament, they narrowly avoided relegation from League A of the Nations League due to the fact that Sweden are marginally worse than them. They conceded 13 goals in 4 games against Portugal and France, which may not bode well for the England game, and if they get out of the group for games against better attacking teams. They then lost their opening game of World Cup qualification against Slovenia, but they've since slightly rebounded by narrowly beating Cyprus and beating Malta as well. The positive omen for Croatia is that they were also bad when they qualified for the 1998 World Cup and the 2018 World Cup. They needed playoffs for both of those World Cups, and it was the 2 greatest moments in the history of independent Croatian football. So maybe this poor form bodes well, but their form has not been good whatsoever.
Maybe their poor form bodes well is the theme of, of the cheat sheet.
Yeah, it really is. And also over kind of describing some of the weaker teams as well, like doing some reading on North Macedonia, I was like, these boys are going to get out of the group. And then after a while, you're like, actually, no, can cool the jets a little bit. They've been the 2 teams. If you go through some of the key players, I would like to say thank you to Zlatko Dalic, the manager, who did a press conference last week, and he said, we're not going to change much. We're going to stick to our 4-2-3-1 or 4-1-4-1 system. We depend a lot on Bruno Petkovic up front. So he's basically told us the tactics he's going to use at this tournament, which is great. So if we start with Bruno Petkovic, the guy up front, this is the guy that Croatian people are expecting the world to be introduced to this summer. He was their top scorer in qualifying, but he only scored 4 goals. The difference between Petkovic and the rest of the Croatian players is that he's tall, he's big. A lot of these Croatian players are diminutive midfielders. This guy's 6'3". He's got as many assists as he has goals for Dinamo Zagreb this season. The whole point of his existence is to bring teammates into play, and that forward position is going to be really interesting. If he's mentioning Petkovic, he's probably going to start, but they do have plenty of other options. They've got Mislav Orsic, who scored that hat-trick against Spurs in the Europa League that famous night. They've got Ante Rebic from AC Milan in the mix. They've got Ivan Perisic as well, who's actually played for Croatia up front, been their most advanced players in a couple of games, despite the fact that he's been a wing-back, a left midfielder for a lot of his club football this season. Another man who could maybe fulfill that role of midfielder come forward is Mario Pasalic of Atalanta, another really good player. So they're actually kind of well stocked in that area, even if they don't have a Mandzukic level of player. Everybody else is kind of like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. So they're not crap in that department, and they've got plenty of depth if injuries do hit. In midfield, when we go through some of the retirements, we thought that midfield would be the one that would be hardest hit with Rakitic retiring. But Kovacic just steps up, and he's been really good for Chelsea under Thomas Tuchel. So that's an excellent replacement that they've got there. Brozovic is still there from the last World Cup. So you'll have Modric, Kovacic and Brozovic as your 3 in midfield. Again, that's a really good midfield. So the more you start looking into this Croatian squad, the more you start to think to yourself, these guys could actually do another job like 2018 again and really go deep into this tournament. Just finally then, just a touch on the defence. Dominik Livakovic has replaced Subasic in goals. He's been with Dinamo Zagreb, got 8 clean sheets across the Europa League campaign this season. He's excellent. And Dejan Lovren is still holding down the defence for Croatia. Himself and Vida will be the centre-back pairing. Lovren helped Zenit to the Russian crown this season. So, as I say, you've got a squad here that, despite being World Cup finalists at the last tournament, you can almost describe as dark horses. But if I was to make a prediction here, this is where I kind of go back on all the positivity that I say. I think that they will lose in the quarter-final. I think they will come second in this group. Yeah. They will beat Poland in the round of 16, and then they will have France in the quarter-final. A brilliant revenge mission for Croatia potentially there, but I think they will lose that game.
But you wouldn't be surprised if they went further.
No, I would not at all. But just taking that into account, if you're England, I mean, you don't want to tank a game, but if England crumble in their first game against Croatia, there will be a positive slant on that immediately, because it will be Poland rather than Portugal that they will play in the round of 16. There is no reward whatsoever to topping Group D. Topping Group D means you will be playing Portugal, you'll be coming up against whoever comes second in that group of death. It might not be Portugal, but that's who I've got it down as. It will be, if it's not Portugal, France or Germany. So that is your reward for topping this group. Your reward for coming second is more than likely playing Poland or maybe even Sweden. So Croatia, who I think are going to finish second, are going to do better than England, who are going to top this group, is the long story short here.
Very good. Does that complete the jury's votes on the entire Euros, or have you more to do?
Oh no, there's way more to do. We're only halfway through Group D.
Right.
Scotland and Czech Republic coming next Tuesday, and then we move on to Group E, which is Spain, Poland, Sweden and Slovakia, and then finally Group F, which is the group of death, 3 big boys and Hungary in there. So we'll be wrapped up by the middle of the week after next, 2 days before the Euros begin.
Very good. Darragh O'Toole in touch on YouTube to say that that doppelganger likeness, that split pick, is as close as myself and Bernard Brogan. Which, I mean, you know, it's right there. It's right there. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
How are you getting on?
Good, thanks. Yeah, all good.
Good man. We're a few bits to put to you. I want to talk to you about CJ Standard before we wrap up. But before all of that, we're going to get your Lions depth chart. We're going to do your particular area of expertise, obviously, with the backs next week. But we're going to kick off with the forwards, Quinny. And we'll start with the front row. Maybe if we go about it this way, if you pick your front row, which hopefully is the one area we might actually have an Irish player starting.
Yeah, look, it's... This isn't clear-cut, Adrian. You know, it depends what's going to happen. A lot of stuff will happen here, and there's a lot of players who are very, very equal in... If you were picking a team tomorrow, it'd be difficult to pick a forward pack because there's not much that separates some players, but the one I'd go for is Mako Vunipola. Look, obviously from a fitness point of view, he probably needs to get fitter. He was
Alan, we're going to because we want to get you in full quality there. The line not great, so we're just going to hang up and redial you up there again and see if we can get that right to get you in all your glory. And we'll get stuck into that. As I said, he'll be back next week with the full details on. He'll complete his lines 15 essentially. What's going to happen there? And if you have any thoughts about it, do keep them coming in. A few comments that have been into us on YouTube. Pochettino did improve Spurs in his 5 years the first time around, but it's Spurs they only ever flatter to deceive, and then the inevitable implosion when the proper big clubs are winning silverware, says Frank Brennan on YouTube this morning. I think that's very much the tone of our conversation earlier on. I would struggle to see how anybody with a modicum of ambition is finding themselves at a club like Tottenham. It's Big Sam. Big Sam is
so ridiculously harsh. So Big Sam is their level. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it's not. It's closer to Tottenham are way closer to Big Sam than they are to one of the top managers, like a Zidane, who's ridiculously been linked with them today. They are. You'd have to accept that.
I believe that 100%. I don't think that's true. I think.
Right now, at this particular moment in time, at the football club.
They're not closer to Big Sam than they are to Zidane. Tottenham are a good club. They're underperforming at the moment. They will be playing Champions League football at some stage.
Why are they a good club? Why do you say that?
In the next 3 years, because they got to a Champions League final a couple of seasons ago. They've challenged on 2 occasions in the last 5 years for a Premier League title. They've got arguably the best attacker in the Premier League on their team. They've got other brilliant talents across the rest of their starting 11. And they've got
Franz on YouTube, Owen, says that Spurs are a bigger club than PSG, one more in Europe, much better stadium, and the something playing a much more competitive league. All PSG have is oil money, and that's all they need. I mean, rightly or wrongly, makes them a bigger club at this particular moment in time. Quinny, you're back.
I'm back, yeah. Apologies.
You're back.
The Wi-Fi isn't great.
That's all good and sounding much better. So take it from the top, front row. You were talking about Mako.
Yeah, I'll just name them first, and then you can ask me about them, Adrian, if you want. So Mako Vunipola, Ken Owens, Tadhg Furlong, Alan Wynne-Jones, Johnny Hill, Tadhg Byrne, Talopi Falatau, and Tom Curry.
Right. Tadhg Byrne is the name that's jumping out at me.
Well, I was going to look. There's a lot of stuff you can do with the back row. When you look at, Jack Conan is there, Sam Simmons, Tipperick, Hamish Watson. There's loads of different players you could play Tom Curry at 6 and play Tipperick or Hamish Watson at 7. You can put Tadhg Byrne in there. I think the only guaranteed there's 2 guaranteed starters at the moment. I think there's definitely a bit of room for an opportunity at 6, but I think Falatau and Tom Curry have they're the 2 players that were their performances in the Six Nations merit them being definite starters at the moment. Obviously a lot can happen, they've a lot of warm-up games before the first test in Joburg, but I'm picking Johnny Hill in the second row because I think he's a great player. Some of the English players will be kind of judged harshly. They were poor during the Six Nations. I think there was mitigation around that with a lot of Saracens players not having played matches. The other teams improving. The little drop in form for some of them for sure, but I think he's a great player.
And what about the Itoje absence? Obviously, will be a thing that would draw attention as well. There, Quinny. I know you've sort of semi-touched on it there, but the big player for the big game, that level of aggression, the physicality that's been mentioned about, it's very harsh to look past him.
Well, if Alan Wynne-Jones is in captain, it's Itoje and Johnny Hill in the second row, the 2 English second rows. But obviously, Alan Wynne-Jones is captain; he's got to start. That may change. Warren Gatland said that at the start of this when he announced the captaincy as well. But ideally, you want your captain starting all these 3 tests. And the reason I'm going for Johnny Hill is because I think Itoje's form, maybe in the Six Nations, wasn't great. I think, he's a superb player. He's world class. And he's someone who inevitably will play really well in the warm-up games and all the games before the first test. So he could be a shoo-in. I'm picking a team based on tomorrow. First test, you got to announce a team today. And I would be giving it to Johnny Hill. I think he's very, very physical. He's aggressive. He's really good in the line-out. His work rate is through the roof. And I'm thinking, you bring a Tadhg off the bench, someone like a Tadhg and Tipperick off the bench, you're getting incredible energy from those players and quality as well. So, you know, again, there's nothing separating some of these players. You could change the entire back row and have Hamish Watson there and Jack Conan and Sam Simmons. There's a lot of players there who are very, very close to each other. It's, you know, there'll be some of this will come down to experience, and as you say, big game players. Of course, a Tadhg is a big game player, and you know the front row. You could argue that Michael Vunipola, me picking Michael Vunipola over Wyn Jones, who probably was the foreign player. I just think he's still not where he can get to. I still think he's improving. I just think if you get Michael Vunipola fit and match fit, that is, you know, he can be devastating with the ball and without.
Yeah, and certainly from that physicality point of view and everything that we believe is that's going to happen in South Africa will be interesting to see, and we'll pick through with Alan. We're just going to fix his line there again. Just that selection, particularly Tadhg Byrne in the back row, is an interesting one on, because in some ways that versatility, I kind of assumed that, not that surprised if he gets into the starting 15, but that versatility makes him an ideal candidate for the 23.
Well, that's it, exactly. And you might have someone like Courtney Laws pushing up ahead of him into the starting team then. So, yeah, it's an interesting. I think will we take our lot with Furlong, Byrne and Henshaw? Like, I think that's something that we'd probably accept as Irish fans. Or, like, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting first few weeks to actually see what the squad actually comprises of, because
who's putting their hand up over those first few games. I'm sure he'll be looking at that, like when he talks about a Tadhg, like first 2-3 games before the test crop up, you're looking at him to go, listen, I got to be in the team.
But also as well the additions to the squad that are supposedly inevitable, that we're still kind of waiting for these moments of flux that thankfully I guess haven't happened just yet in that squad, because I think there hasn't been a Lions tour in living memory where there hasn't been a bolter who's all of a sudden been a part of the starting 15 conversation when it comes to actual test weekends. So it's going to be interesting. But so Byrne and Furlong is where Ireland are at anyway, from 1 to 8.
Quinny, you're back with us. Will you tease out you went for Byrne, didn't you, in the back row?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Go on, will you tease that out with us? Because I was just saying there that, like, I think that maybe he pays a price for the versatility, but you're obviously seeing enough about him with Ireland over the last little while to stick him in there.
Yeah, I just think he gives you incredible turnover ability. You could easily put Courtney Laws there as well, which could happen. You could put a Tadhg in the back row. When the coaches sit down and they think, are we going to go head to head with him from a physical point of view? I think the players he's picked in the back row, you probably have 4 poachers there, you know, with Watson, Tipperick, Tom Curry, and even Sam Simmons is very good on the ground as well. So it kind of indicates that he's going for pace, mobility, and going to try and attack that South African breakdown. And I just think putting Tadhg Byrne into the back row, it gives you the line-out option, which will be crucial, because South Africa's set piece is a big emphasis on that for them. But also, you know, that breakdown ability to get a couple of big turnovers. And I think he's proven himself in the Six Nations now that he's up to this level and he can perform consistently.
Yeah. Is the front row fairly straightforward, Quinny? Like, that there's not necessarily a huge amount of debate about it?
The only one that's straightforward and certain is Tadhg Furlong at this point. I think Jamie George, obviously from a fitness point of view, will hope to get up to speed. He's top quality player. Cowan Dickey is, you know, explosive as well, and he's very good. But I think Ken Owens brings that consistency, physicality, strength, scrummaging ability, which again is a crucial area against the Springboks. And probably, look, I'm contradicting myself here a little bit on form, because the form Lou said is Wyn Jones. But I just think what Vunipola can bring, and if his fitness gets up to match fitness gets up to where it can get to and where we know he can get to, I think he's a top player.
Yeah. So yeah, Vunipola, Owens, Furlong, Alan Wynne-Jones, Johnny Hill, and then you've gone for Byrne, Curry and Faletau across the back, Quinny.
Yeah, well, I was, as I said, I could easily put Tadhg or Courtney Laws in the back row, or take Johnny Hill out and put Tadhg back in second row. You could switch a lot to these players, and I think it will come down to who's playing well in the warm-up games and who stands out. Someone like Hamish Watson could start in the first test as a 7. Tom Curry could be pushed to 6. Tipuric, again, they're brilliant back row players, so dynamic and mobile, and so there's lots of different ways you can go here. But it's kind of like if you're picking a team tomorrow, that's the forward pack I'd go with.
All right, well look, we'll be back. There's so much to get stuck into around that particular topic, and there'll be more, and I know that, like, as well, we were just saying there, Quinny, that like over those first couple of games before the test kick in, like some of those names that we've mentioned, there will be players within there, and like Tadhg maybe is a prime candidate for it, but somebody like that who'll put their hand up and in one of these games and effectively be saying to Gatland, like, I've got to be in there's no way you can drop me. So there are those factors that we haven't seen yet.
Tadhg could be captain yet for one of the tests, because I think there's no guarantees with Alan Wynne-Jones either. He's got to play well. He's got to play well in these warm-up games, and that's something Gatland has proved before and shown us before. He's not afraid to make big calls. Look at the Drickle call in 2013 in Australia. So he said it, and I think he's leaving himself open to be able to do this, because he's already brought it up and said, look, there is a possibility that Alan Wynne-Jones might not start the test. So there could be a different captain for any of these test matches. But I think, like I say, you want, if you're picking a test match tomorrow, a team, Alan Wynne-Jones will be your captain going out for that first one.
Alan, how do those 8 compare to what you suspect Warren Gatland will pick?
It'll be close to it, I think. He's a lot of trust in Ken Owens. Obviously, he coached him for Wales. He's a fan of Furlong's, and I think, Furlong is a certainty. Obviously, unless he has a bad run in the warm-up games. Alan Wynne-Jones, he's captain. He's put faith in him. So I think where the debates will end up being, will be who's the other second row on, and the makeup of the back row. But for me, I think he'll see it pretty straightforward that Faletau, as it stands, and Curry are 2 that he'll need in his back row. But again, things can change. So I don't think it'll be a huge change, and I don't think you could make a couple of changes to this forward pack and nobody would blink an eye. Like I said, you could put Wynne-Jones in there, you could put Jamie George in, you can change up the second rows, or he is a fan of Tipuric as well, so I think there's a real chance that Curry could go to 6 and Tipuric could go to 7 with Faletau. That could be your back row for the first test as well. So it just depends on what happens in the warm-up zone. Like I said, lots of things can happen here. There's inevitably going to be 1 or 2 injuries as well.
If we dig down a little bit into the depth then, what ratio of forwards to backs would you go with for picking a test squad this summer?
Oh, would I go 6-2 split or would I go 3 backs? I'm not a fan of the 6-2 split unless you have someone like Tipuric who you could easily put out in the centre or on the wing, So it depends. It's very, very risky. I think that if you get a couple of injuries in the backs early on, and it can disrupt the whole game. So. You can always put a hooker in the back row. So that's why I'm not a fan of having 6 forwards on the bench and 2 backs. I just think it's too risky for me. Lots of coaches will start to do it. We saw the Champions Cup final last Saturday with Toulouse, and La Rochelle had a 6-2 split, both of them. So I just think if you get into a scenario of trying to match the South Africans, it's risky, and South Africa was very, very rewarding for them at the World Cup, and they're the ones that kind of have, made this, normalise this more in a sense with having 6 forwards in the back. I just always think it's a risk on. I think you should go with your 5 forwards and your 3 backs.
The question is just kind of more in the context of what South Africa maybe are likely to do and what you might want to send out against South Africa. So
well, we don't know what they're going to do because they haven't played in so long. They haven't played since the World Cup. So I would imagine that they'll, it's horses for courses. Depends what kind of a side the Lions are going to potentially have and how they match that. It will be no secret. They're going to try and physically impose themselves. They're not going to dramatically change the game because they've no rugby played since the World Cup, so their template will be very, very similar to the World Cup. It's all about pressure, really good kicking game, and physically dominating the opposition at set piece and in the contact areas.
Last one for me on this then. So if we go for a 5-3 split on the bench, I assume you'd be picking a Tadhg and Courtney Laws as your 2 second row / back rows, and then who would be your 16, 17, 18?
Not necessarily. I think I would, as I said, I would put a Tadhg and Tipperick there at the moment.
Sorry.
If I wouldn't pick 2 second rows. It may happen that he picks another second row who can play in the back row, but I just think Tipperick, if he doesn't start, it's very hard to leave him out of my 23. Jamie George, sub-hooker, Andrew Porter and Wyn Jones.
Right, Porter is interesting.
Yeah, I think he's ahead of Xander Fagerson. I think and again, he's someone who could challenge for a test spot if Tadhg Furlong doesn't play well. He's obviously taken a fancy to Andrew Porter, Warren Gatland has, and I just think he's a dynamic prop who, again, is brilliant at the breakdown, physically very, very powerful, and his scrummaging is top notch. So, again, this is a guy who could start a test match. Will they try and bring him over and make a loose out of him? And who knows? That could happen. Particularly in some of the warm-up games, he might be tried there as an option as a loose set.
It's just so wild. Gatland well do it like
as crazy as this sounds, Adrian. Porter could start a test at loose set. It could happen, and to try and get his quality on the field with Furlong and what he does around the field as well. But look, why bring Rory Sutherland and Wyn Jones then if you're thinking that way? It just could happen if there's a bang or a knock to one of those players and he could play one of the warm-up games as a loose set. And if he does, then he might come into the reckoning for one of the tests. Yeah.
And there's lots, as we said, water to go under the bridge before we get that far. A couple of things we wanted to talk to you as well about. Obviously, a Thomond sign-off for CJ, Tommy O'Donnell and for James Cronin this weekend. It does mean that, thankfully, the last time we get to see CJ Stander wasn't that Late Show appearance last Friday night, that we'll be left with slightly better memories than that. The one thing he did say that was sort of half interesting, Quinny, was that he still has loads to give. It was pretty clear. I'm sure you saw the Jake White comments during the week as well.
Yes.
This week, where he said effectively he'd approached CJ Stander about playing for the Bulls, and CJ was didn't want to compromise any retirement fund payouts, was the quote. He'd play for the Bulls tomorrow, obviously, if the money wasn't an issue.
Maybe, I think, but he could have played on in Ireland as well. I think he can't have it every which way to go back to South Africa. I'm not sure how the tax relief works. Do you still have to retire in Ireland, or can you retire somewhere else?
I think he can retire somewhere else and it not be impacted, but he couldn't go there then and play.
Yeah, with another team, yeah. So look, if anyone was in the same position, I just think the heart has gone out of it for him. And I think mentally he's made this decision to try and go back to the family and to get out. Of course, he could play for a number of years. And he could have stayed here for a year and got his retirement and stayed around Ireland. But I suppose he couldn't go back and play professionally then. The danger would have been if the other option would have been go back, play in South Africa, and then come back to Europe or come back to Ireland and play for another year with another club. So it's a bit complicated, but none of us would do anything different, Adrian. I think that tax relief is there, and it was probably an incentive to make sure he hangs up the boots for good when he makes the decision, and that's what's going to happen now.
Yeah, and of course he might still want to play, and nobody judges him over that, obviously. But I guess that's the way it's going to stay, unless he wants to lose that money. The Cronin departure, Quinny, we haven't had a chance to talk to you about yet, although it's been announced obviously over the last couple of weeks. They are obviously Munster now a bit light on experienced loose heads. Interesting reading some of Graham Roundtree's comments during the week. He said it was a competitive position. But about Cronin specifically leaving, he says, guys do come through and guys leave the club. That's just the nature of clubs. It jumped out at me as not exactly the sort of recommendation that you're going to be putting on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing. I'm sure nobody knows exactly what's happened here, but from what I understand, the contracts, they couldn't find a compromise to get a contract, and I think James Cronin wanted to stay. Munster wanted to keep him as well, but it's down to brass tacks, Adrian, and budgets, and I think COVID has probably influenced that. And you've got to stack the numbers up from Eoin Van Gran throughout the squad, and I think he's a player who would be in high demand in normal times. I think COVID might change that, but and maybe it's late in the day for James Cronin to get a club in France or in the UK or even in one of the other provinces in Ireland. It's a risk. I would be concerned about it. Obviously, we got Liam O'Connor and Josh Wycherley coming through.
Yeah.
Jeremy Lockman, Dave Kilcoyne. But if Killer gets injured in one of the big games and misses a European game, there's a concern then. And that's a worry for him. So, look, these things happen, and Graham Rowntree is right. Players move on, and that's just a reality. And sometimes we kind of sidestep the fact that sometimes it is down to money. Most of the time it's down to money. And that's a reality, and I found that towards the end of my own career. If you don't get what you feel you deserve, and your agent feels you deserve, potentially you're out the door. And it's the same if the club don't feel that they can pay you that or you deserve that, well, they don't offer it. And that's what you have agents for. And obviously they couldn't get an agreement here. I think there's definitely a number of years left in James Cronin and a bit of an unfulfilled ability, I think. I think he's a brilliant player. He's someone you could easily put into an Irish team and he wouldn't let you down, and he would deliver at that level. He's been unlucky with injuries, and I think he'll be a loss for Munster.
We'll continue the theme of loose heads and the Irish thing, because I read with interest Dennis Buckley during the week. He's going to bring up the double century for Connacht against Benetton this weekend. It's an unbelievable shift from him. Very consistent performer. And it's been strongly suggested this week, Quinny, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on it, that if he was at any of the other provinces, he'd have a hatful of Ireland caps by now.
Yeah, possibly. I think, and that's, like it or not, that's the issue for some Connacht players. Tiernan O'Halloran nearly signed for Munster a couple of years ago, and he signed a heads of agreement, and then he changed his mind and stayed with Connacht, which is fully understandable. And I think sometimes it's playing with Munster or Leinster does elevate you up a little bit more, and it's harder for Connacht guys, and it's a bit unfair at times. They're trying to create their own legacy and their own development of Irish players. So he sometimes you don't get the recognition that you deserve, the Connacht players, and he's been fantastic. Not the biggest prop in the world, so maybe is that an issue when you step up to the international level, but certainly he's been so consistent over the years and so important for Connacht. But like I said, that's the reality, Adrian. I'm not saying that Tiernan O'Halloran didn't go on and get more caps for Ireland, but I think it could have been a factor.
Yeah, and like it's very unfair though. It's very penal, like that. The likes of Henshaw and Aki maybe in some regards are such outliers that, like, they Connacht getting punished by who they are almost. It feels it feels very penal.
It does, but if you look at 2016 when they won the Pro 14, I think they had 5 or 6, if I'm not mistaken, on the tour to South Africa, and that was their biggest representation and for a long time, and players who played really well throughout that phenomenal season got rewarded. So you feel that Connacht have to have those type of seasons to get 4, 5, 6 guys into an Irish squad at a time.
Yeah, like it's too easy. It's too easy to write them off, Quinny, in some ways.
And
like,
it is unfair. It is unfair at times, but
like
that's the reality that they're continuously fighting.
The Jack Carty stuff, where he gets effectively like blamed for the World Cup, and then like to hell or to Connacht. And if he was at one of the other Irish provinces, he would definitely have been back in by now.
Yeah, maybe. I think again, it's kind of like Dennis Buckley's one, and you know they've been incredibly loyal. All these kind of players. I know Munster tried to get Ultim Delan a few years ago, and he signed a new contract with Connacht to stay. If he went to Munster, would he have had more involvements with Ireland? Would he have got better? I don't know, because Connacht, like I said, they're trying to create their own legacy and their own brand and try and get it to the level of Munster and Leinster, which is always going to be challenging, because you would put European Cups behind those teams, and that's the level that is expected of them, and that's not expected of Connacht. So it's a challenge, and sometimes it's very unfair, but the individuals have got to make their own decisions and take that into account when they sign contracts, and if they want to stay and play with Connacht, that's what they're up against.
Quinny, thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Talk to you next week. Alan Quinlan on the line there. 9:10. Here's a bit of a flavour of what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of today. 1:30, live Paddy Power half hour. That's going to mark a card for the Champions League final, specifically this weekend. We'll have live Friday night racing from 3 o'clock with Jared, Johnny and crew. Team 33 League of Ireland legend is Roscommon's own John Caulfield, with a long career in the League of Ireland. 6 o'clock, it'll be OTB Gold, Irish football special there. Kevin Caban in conversation with Shay Given, Noel Quinn and Jason McAteer, and then Off the Ball live on your radio tonight from 7 o'clock, and Team 33 will be back with the latest episode from 9 this evening. We're back after these. It's live Crappy Quiz.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Football Pod with Paddy and Andy, our new weekly Gaelic football show with Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran.
Lads, it's official, right? No GAA player was practicing tackling at all during lockdown. They were practicing that dummy bounce.
Defenders got complacent. They didn't have to mark anyone. If you were playing on the full back line, you didn't have to get touch tight. You didn't have to dog a fella because you three your mates standing 10 yards away from you.
Download the OTB Sports app and subscribe to the GAA podcast feed now.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna auto mower.
Auto mower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna auto mower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
Invisible Threads, a Go Loud original.
As we celebrate the 6th anniversary of marriage equality, Invisible Threads meets older members of the LGBTQ community who reflect on their journeys and tell their stories. From shame and isolation to conversion therapy, from living with fear to coming out as an older person. Join me, James O'Hagan, for this powerful 8-part series, winner of the first Go Loud Podship.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
12 minutes past 9 on this Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you every morning by Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. It is time for the Crappy Quiz. Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
No! Is that right?
I know! Is that right?
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It is the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido Crappy Quiz. Every Friday we pit 3 of Team Off the Ball up against each other in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today is still reeling from his failed attempt this week to change the name of his GAA podcast to the Tommy Rooney and Friends Show. Will we see a breakaway pod at some point soon? Time will tell. Tensions reign in the career of the Meath Hillbilly Tommy Rooney.
We could get there someday. We could get there. There's been a friends reunion.
Did you miss the highlight of the first couple of weeks of the podcast when Tommy said to the lads, he goes, "Oh, we've got one of the great full forward lines here," and Paddy didn't get it, and Paddy was like, "Yeah, myself and Andy are a bit past it now." No acknowledgement of the great Meath Hill full forward at all. You could see Tommy's heart sinking. He's like, "I'm one of ye lads. I'm one of ye."
Nathan, as the head of content
for
OTB Sports, are you concerned about the amount of nonsense chat about an also ran like Meath on the podcast?
It is very concerning. There's been not enough Mayo chat, I find. You know, we're not at the 50% Mayo threshold that I expect of all off the ball GA content. And listen, if we're talking about Meath, where do we stop? You know, are we doing 20 minutes of Westmeath next week?
Well, listen, lads, we got talking about Meath by virtue of the fact that we were talking about the death of the Leinster Championship.
Well, to be fair, they are top of that conversation, Tommy. That's fair.
They definitely are. You know, second best, but hey, second best. As we know with this quiz, second best has never got you anywhere.
It's true. Our next contestant today wasn't sure what jumper to wear this morning, so he rang John Giles and asked him for his opinion. He wasn't sure what series to watch on Netflix last week, so he rang John Giles for his opinion. The man looks to his idol for any and all validation, whether it's his god-awful team of the season or his occasionally acceptable fashion choices. It is, of course, the Beast of Ballyhonus, Nathan Nate Dog Murphy.
Oh, jeez, I've never seen the amount of people have said to me, Christ, Sheahan was in a bad mood that morning. He was giving it both barrels. And then, for the great, the true football man, the master of all, John Giles, to say Sheahan was talking nonsense live on national radio, put him right back in his box. But he's so bitter about it, he's just not going to let it go.
How's Eoin going to get on at the Euros, Nathan?
What's your point?
He hasn't been selected.
I'm sure we know that, but he wasn't never going to be selected.
Oh, listen.
What?
Well, you had him in your team of the year. He's not even in the England squad.
Yeah. But they're two totally different things.
Oh,
Adrian,
if he's in the Premier League team of the year, Tommy, what are you thinking? He's got to be in the squad, right? Like if any.
I don't know, Adrian. I think some of the shade you've been throwing this morning you just got to work on.
You're
it,
just annoyed now because Meath has got caught in the crosshairs.
Man who has never seen Luke Ayling play criticises Luke Ayling.
Nonsense.
Wow.
Nonsense. Move on. Nonsense. Clutching at straws as usual.
Give me one defining characteristic of Luke Ayling, Adrian.
Move on. Well, exactly.
What colour hair does he have?
Rhetorical question.
Tell me about his hair. What sort of hair does he have?
Yeah, move on. Stop talking nonsense.
Go on. What sort of hair does he have?
I'm not going to even dignify the question with a response.
Oh, hold on.
Oh my God! One of the most recognisable.
Of course, I know what you're talking. I understand. I understand. I know the answers to the question, but I'm not going to. The words. I'm not going to dignify the question with a response.
Who's the doppelganger, Adrian?
Move on.
Our last contestant today is delighted that fans will be allowed back into stadiums for provincial finals this summer. It means he can go and watch his beloved Westmeath claim their crown once again as the kings of the 11 counties when they get hammered by Dublin, but stay happy in the knowledge that they're better than Longford. Give it up for Adrian, who's your daddy Barry.
And to be fair, all of the other counties in Leinster, as we've established this morning. Yeah, morning.
As ever, the format is the classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on a range of themes. Then it's on to the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast the crappy quiz on otbsports.com or the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to click the thumbs up, even if we contribute nothing but misery to your day. Please send any questions you have via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. And we did get posts this week from Garrett in Enniskerry, who sent us questions via express post, no less. Good thing you did send them via express post. I only got them yesterday, so it was worth the €10, Garrett. Thank you so much, and we will be including them today. Garrett,
Boom is back.
I mean, he sent in Roy the Rovers postcards previously, which we'll all remember. He is literally the crappy quiz GOAT, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Garrett. Round one is the boring questions round, never multiple choice. Questions courtesy of Garrett. Tommy, question one for you. Only 2 people have been named Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year on more than one occasion. Can you name them?
Name both?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty tough, lads. Michael Jordan.
No, you're wrong straight away.
Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods is one. The other?
Serena Williams.
No.
Muhammad Ali.
No. LeBron James is the other one.
Tom Brady.
I had LeBron in my head.
LeBron
but
and Tiger.
I didn't have Tiger. Tiger didn't enter my brain.
Nathan, which sports playing surface measures 23.77 metres by 8.23 metres?
Sorry,
this is a great question. Which sports playing surface measures 23.77 metres by 8.23 metres?
Look at his brain trying to...
It really, really changes the dynamic of the quiz when there's a postcard thrown into the mix.
Sorry, give me the length and the width again.
23.77 metres is the length. 8.23 metres is the width.
8 metres width.
Poor Nathan, he's literally just rolled out of bed.
He hasn't a clue. This really could go anywhere from a snooker table to a hockey pitch.
Basketball?
No. Anyone? It's a
racquetball court.
It's a tennis court. Tennis singles. Measures that distance. Yeah. Adrian.
It's a ridiculous question.
Question one for you, Adrian. What hairstyle does Luke Ayling have? No, I'm only joking. What country
I'd take the points off you for that. Go on.
What country is top of the all-time Winter Olympics medal table?
Oof. Wonder, is it the Canadians? Or... Jojo was going for that button. It was very close.
What's Garrett's day job? Because we could have a job for him.
Yeah, these are way better questions than I've ever come up with, to be quite honest.
I mean, America, Canada.
Any other countries?
Well, they're going to be the top contenders, Tommy. Like, that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, you're right.
It's Canada. It's got to be Canada.
It's not Canada.
Is it not Russia or something? No.
No, it's Norway.
Yeah, Norway. Wow. Right. Okay.
Ridiculous question.
Okay, so
Norway,
it is,
fair play to Norway.
It is 0-0 after round one. Round two is the Champions League finals round. Questions also courtesy of Garrett. Tommy,
did you do any work this week?
I wrote round three. We'll get to that later. Tommy, question. The anchor in Nathan's face there. Tommy, question two for you. Who were the finalists in the first final involving teams from one nation?
The first final involving teams from one nation. So I'm guessing this is pretty recent.
Nathan's woken up angry this morning.
He's not happy.
Yeah, he's a man on a mission.
That question is right in this wheelhouse, Owen, and it's not.
Valencia, Real Madrid.
Oh, he's done it. Great answer, Tommy. 2000.
I had AC Juve screaming in my brain, and I was like, no, there had to be one before that.
Nathan, 6 teams have a finals record of 1 win and 1 defeat. Can you name 2 of those teams?
That's a toughie.
Ooh. Just take it as a compliment that I've given the toughest question to you, Nathan, out of...
Chelsea.
That's one. Can you name one more?
Borussia Dortmund.
Oh, well done.
Correct.
Well done.
The full list is Celtic, Chelsea, Hamburg, Steaua Bucharest, Marseille and Borussia Dortmund. Adrian, can you follow their lead? What links the 1988 PSV Eindhoven Benfica final to the Republic of Ireland team?
Go again.
What links the 1988 PSV Eindhoven Benfica final to the Republic of Ireland's team?
Stuttgart.
Correct. The game was played in Stuttgart 2 weeks before Ireland beat England there. Round 3, well done, Adrian.
Long hair, by the way, just...
Well done, Adrian.
Just...
What was that?
What do you mean long? What do you mean long hair?
Go on.
And how does he style it after the length
Move
is...
Move on.
Did you Google that?
Yeah, of course I did, yeah. Quick Google, yeah.
We can't see you, so you must have.
Round 3 is...
Well done, by the way, well done.
Round 3 is the Euro 2021 Underdogs round. In the first of many Euro rounds over the next few weeks, we're going to start off with some trivia on the lowest seeds across the groups. Tommy, can you name the 2 first-timers at this year's tournament?
This is literally your cheat sheet, isn't it?
Exactly, you know, double job, save time.
The 2 first-timers. North Macedonia. And... Jesus. North Macedonia. And Finland.
Correct. Well done.
Thank you.
Nathan, Wales are bottom seeds in Group A with Turkey, Italy and Switzerland. But can you tell me who was their last goal scorer at a major tournament? Yes, it was that night against Belgium.
That's pretty easy, giving him a good old hint there.
Yeah, I would agree, Tommy.
Like, it was a decent question.
See, now I feel like it's a trick question.
But sure, it doesn't matter if it's a trick question.
We all know did they not win 2-1?
Okay, less of the chat and more of the answers.
I see, I don't remember. I'm going to have to say, Robson Canu.
It is not.
Oh, I thought it was
it.
Was it Joe Allen?
No, it was not.
3-2, wasn't it?
Gareth Bale.
It was 3-1. Sam Vokes scored the final question. So that's why I gave the hint, Tommy. It wasn't straightforward.
I see. Okay. No, he screwed me over rightly there.
Fair play.
Trick questions not allowed.
Adrian, Scotland are the underdogs in Group D against England, Croatia and the Czech Republic. But in what year did Scotland last play at a European Championships?
Oof. I'm going to say 92.
How did you forget Euro 96?
96?
Yuri Geller.
How's that?
Yuri Geller. I was only watching it the other day.
Oh, Adrian.
I blew
there,
the ball off the spot. Gary McAllister. Wasn't that what he said?
That's what you said.
Okay, Tommy, you're on 2 points. Nathan, you're on 1. Adrian, you're on 1.
I thought... Yeah, okay.
we go to round 4, which is the Fun Free Magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point.
Sorry.
I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper.
This work.
I'm also going to ask for your pens once the music ends.
No pen.
Here. I've no paper.
Is your helper who brings in the coffee not there to provide pens? Nathan has now left the building. This is the beauty of doing a live quiz, which we do live every single week here on OTB AM. So when Nathan comes back, we'll give you a reminder of...
Can we not just start and give Nathan the...
Yeah, it's not a bad show, Tommy. Just listen, the game kicks off.
Tommy,
you're not here.
Like this is the laying tactics from Nathan. How will Tommy's basically sleeping on a lead here. He's 2 points to 1.
I'm going for 3 in a row here, boys.
Tommy, I mean,
with the quiz.
There's been a great appreciation that Tommy is the new king of the quiz.
Take your time, Nathan.
Do you hear that, Nathan? Do you hear that?
We're not live.
Repeat that line on.
Tommy Rooney, will he be able to hold on to his crown as king of the crappy quiz?
Come on.
Time will tell. The number, if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of majors won by Brooks Koepka in his career to date, plus the number of total penalties scored in the Villarreal-Manchester United shootout on Wednesday night, plus the number of La Liga titles won by Zinedine Zidane as Real Madrid manager, plus the number of Irish players in the British and Irish Lions squad this summer. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So how many majors has Brooks Koepka won in his career to date? How many penalties were scored in Villarreal-Manchester United on Wednesday night? How many La Liga titles did Zidane win as manager of Real Madrid? And then how many players from Ireland are in the British and Irish Lions squad? Add them all up. What do you get? Adrian seems to have a number here.
I do, yeah.
Pens down, please. Adrian, what have you gone for?
36.
36, Tommy?
I bottled it and played it safe. I went for 29.
29. Nathan?
36.
Oh, it's 35. They both go bust. Tommy gets 2 points.
Now, you see, that's the flaw of this quiz. That is... I mean, it's ridiculous. Absolutely.
It's the name of the game, Adrian.
But it's
play the game,
you
man.
being like conservative, safe, play it down the middle of the road. Myself and Nathan going all out attack and get no reward.
The number of majors won by Brooks Koepka is 4. The number of penalties scored in Villarreal Manchester United was 21.
Yeah.
Zidane won 2 titles, 17 and 20. And
Adrian, there's no point playing basketball on the tennis court, mate.
4, 21, 3 and 8.
And 8 Irish players in the British and Irish Lions.
That is a killer. It really is a killer.
Yeah, God, it really is.
There's no reward for us, Nathan, in that context, and that, you know.
Listen, you're going to get a chance because the first and the second question in the rapid fire round is always the two toughest ones. So you're going to get a chance, boys.
Winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Gary Brennans from the Gary Nevilles. It's a no theme.
Listen, the whole thing is flawed at this stage.
I agree.
What's wrong with Gary Neville? What's wrong with Gary Brennan? Why are you having a pop at Gary Brennan?
No, I'm having a pop at Gary Neville.
Why are you having a pop at Gary Neville?
Just because I want to.
By the way, well done to Tender Chicken on YouTube. We've got 35 bang on the money.
Well done, Tender Chicken. Nathan, like, why is this whole thing flawed?
What?
Anyway, the score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. There will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start with the person with the highest number of points, which is Tommy, who's on 4 points. Then on to the person in second, which is Nathan and Adrian, both tied on 1 point. But I tossed the coin before coming on air.
Oh no, Nathan's on 2.
Whoa!
Nathan's on 2.
Huh? No.
Nathan's on 2 points.
How is he on 2 points?
Oh no, he's on 1 point. He's on 1 point. Yeah. He's on
Tommy, easy does it. Easy.
Ooh.
Toss the coin.
I didn't know my lead was this good.
And Adrian has won that coin toss.
Good man.
Adrian goes second.
Back in your box, Murphy. Back in your box.
Adrian goes second, and Nathan.
That's what you get for disrespecting the rapid fire round.
If you get a question correct, Tommy, you'll be going first. I keep asking you questions, and until you get one wrong. Once you get a question wrong, I move on to Adrian, and your incorrect question also means a deduction of 1 point. Tommy, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Manu Tuilagi plays for what club?
Leicester.
No, Sale Sharks. Which French team has Marcelo Bielsa previously managed, Adrian? Lille or Marseille?
Marseille.
No, Lille. Derek Rose plays for what NBA team, Nathan?
Come on, I couldn't even hear the question.
New York Knicks. What club did Robbie Brady join Burnley from, Tommy?
Wolves.
No, Norwich City. Who will team up with Bryson DeChambeau at this July's charity golf event against Tom Brady?
Aaron Rodgers.
Correct. Name either of the teams that got relegated from Division 1 of the Allianz Leagues last season.
Mayo.
Correct. Name the reigning French Open men's champion. Too long.
Oh. No, hang on.
Give me it now. Quick.
The reigning French Open men's champion is Novak Djokovic.
No, it's Rafa Nadal.
Oh! Damn it! Jesus Christ! Oh!
Can I ask you a question, Owen, just before we go any further? What was the Marcelo Bielsa question?
What French team has he managed? Lille or Marseille?
He managed Marseille.
Hang about. Is that me back in? That's me having won.
I'm after messing this up, am I?
Well, but no, it's not you back in.
Sorry.
No, that's me. That means I win.
No,
well done, Tommy. Well pointed out.
We need to start again.
Question.
No. Nathan, you are definitely out. You shut it. You
question was which one did he manage more Hold on.
I couldn't.
The question was who did he manage more recently? The question was who did he manage more recently?
Right.
That's not what you said, though.
That's not what I said.
That's not what you said.
So Champione is what I'm hearing. That's right. That means I've got 3 points. That means I've won the quiz. Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. How does it not mean I win the quiz?
It doesn't.
Jojo, just start again. Have you got
Nathan, use it. Kill his mic.
What we're going to do here.
You're out.
What we're going to do here is that it is a tie break between Tommy and
I've thrown my
Adrian.
pen on the ground now.
It is a tie break between Tommy and Adrian.
Nathan, you're gone. You zip it. You are totally out here.
No.
Nathan, your points total at the minute is 0.
That changed the dynamic of the whole.
No, it changed nothing.
Back we go. With 40 seconds more. 40 seconds more. Start again. Tommy.
You're out, Nathan. Zip it.
Here we go.
Forget about it. No. What's our tie? We're on the tiebreaker.
Who did I ask that question to? Was to you? Was it? Yeah. So we're going to do a tiebreaker.
It doesn't matter. He asked it to. It's changed the dynamic.
I actually should. Tommy, you know I should win this quiz. I'm well pointed out.
No, Adrian.
But you know I should win this quiz rightfully.
Here's what's going to happen.
Don't do the usual me on it now and throw the ball into the net from a yard out. Come on. Give loud the win. Come on, do the decent thing.
Hold on. Here's what's going to happen here.
Adrian, take a step back.
I've made a decision. We're going to do a tie break. However, Tommy, you will have the option to go second.
Sorry, this is a nonsense.
Sorry, hang on a second. No. No.
It's the only option we have.
No.
I messed up. I'm sorry.
Hang on one second.
I messed up.
You can't let Tommy go second.
Well,
I'm the one who won the quiz.
Take a break for 5 minutes. Take a break for 5 minutes.
Here, no, hang on. No, Tommy is not going second here. I won the quiz.
I've got the quiz. I've got 3 more questions left on my sheet.
No, it's a tiebreaker, okay? 10. And I'm going second. That's how this is ending. I won the quiz.
No, you won.
I'm going to do Peter Fitzpatrick under. Dick Turpin there can just pass over
Adrian's mic. Can we kill Adrian's mic, please? Thank you. Tie break.
No, you've 10 questions. Do the quiz again.
I've only got 3 more rapid fire questions in front of me. It's not fair.
He's out. You killed that fella's
Okay, Adrian, how many Ireland caps does Anthony Pilkington have?
He should be getting this question, by the way.
You won the tie-break against Nathan, so actually...
But Nathan's not involved.
No, but one person wins
Why
each
am I not
toss.
involved? It doesn't make any sense.
This quiz is so flawed.
So, Anthony Pilkington, how many caps?
Just quit.
Just let him answer because we are up against the clock
There is no proper winner.
I'm going to
There is
say
no champ.
Anthony Pilkington has...
There's no champ.
9.
Anthony Pilkington.
9. Tommy, higher or lower? Or what are you going for?
I mean, go for a few either way.
That's a good answer because I had 8 in my head, but I'm going to say...
go with your instinct, Tommy. Just go with your gut.
Injuries. Loads of friendlies.
Go with your
loads of
instinct.
injuries.
Whatever your gut says.
I'm going to say lower.
What?
Lower. Well, the beauty of going first is that if you get it bang on the money, nothing can stop you. Anthony Pilkington has 9 Ireland caps.
Get
Adrian Barry, right from the death of Solomon.
Don't play the music.
Oh, the music. Bring it on, Jojo. Lash
Don't
that
play
up.
the music. There should be
Lash
no
it up.
music. It's
Drown out that lad.
flawed victory.
Oh,
That quiz,
yes.
I would like to apologise to everybody for absolutely failing.
You
in
can
the
apologise on,
face of-
but the rightful outcome.
Marcelo Bielsa was most recently
But you're
manager
screwed
of
up
me
the
and
entire
And by the way,
I apologise. It did.
One thing I will retract. I will retract the scurrilous comparison between Tommy and Meath and Joe Sheridan. That was scurrilous, Tommy. You didn't deserve that. You did the right thing by calling it out. You did what Meath should have done that year, and you gave the title back to Louth. So, top man.
Look,
well done.
listen,
I'm sorry,
I
Tommy.
wasn't going to let this go on with all our eagle-eyed crappy quiz viewers commenting afterwards and saying
No, you were right.
such and such was changed. But what I would say is I don't think Owen Sheahan handled it very well.
No.
I don't think he should have gone to a
Very
tiebreaker.
bad.
I think it changed because the second I heard it, I was thrown for the rest of the quiz.
Yeah, I
I
apologise.
think there should have been 10
I couldn't
fresh
even hear the
questions.
question.
There should have been 10 fresh questions.
This
There should have been 10 fresh questions.
Sorry, lads. Zip it.
This is well, actually, in technicality, when I asked you which French team is Marcelo Bielsa
In
previously managed-
technicality,
Wait, hold on,
unfair.
Adrian.
No,
Wait,
no,
hold on.
back.
Just let me just finish. When I asked you which French team has he previously managed, Lille or Marseille, the correct answer is actually both. So you actually got that question incorrect.
In technicality,
as it turned out. So
in technicality, I have won the quiz. I got the tiebreaker
you know what?
correct.
This
That's
is
what
over.
the rules dictated. I am
There
the
shouldn't be
champion.
a winner.
Champ.
Congratulations.
Champ coming your way next year.
There shouldn't be a winner this week.
Congratulations.
There shouldn't be a winner.
Congratulations. And
Can I also ask, and I said earlier, what have you been doing? So we had your man in Enniskerry who sent in 2 decent rounds of questions, so which leaves you with feck all to do, and still you couldn't do it correctly.
The fact that Nathan
What
is
a
still
waste of
talking,
space.
having been out of the quiz about a half an hour ago
This
in
is-
I'm
itself
not out of
is
the quiz, so
remarkable.
the quiz is
This
null and
is
void.
no. This is less a matter of
Champion.
preparation and just more a matter of.
By the way,
being
before we leave
confident.
Owen, can you just confirm that I'm the champion just before we leave?
Adrian's the winner, yeah. And but we've done this slot. This slot is over. There's some more great stuff coming up from last night's Off the Ball in just
positive.
a moment. Thank you to Tommy. Thank you for Nathan for joining us. Apologies to all our loyal viewers and listeners here in the Crappy Quiz. I've let you down. I've let Garrett from Enniskerry down. I will take this to my grave. I apologise, but congratulations to Adrian. The champ is back.
Tadhg Leader, come in.
How's it going? How are you? Cheers for having me.
You're very welcome. Listen, we were talking in the news round about how Naomi Osaka may or may not be doing press conferences straight after her French Open matches in the next couple of weeks. And here we are talking to somebody on the day of a game. We're finding ourselves in a very, very fortunate position, Tadhg.
Yeah, it's actually mad. We're playing locally here at 10 p.m. tonight, so I've been told to be prepared to be in the stadium playing until 1:30, near 2 in the morning. So yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. But chatting to you lads is good. Helps me pass the day. It's a long old day.
Actually, look, if we're helping you pass the day and getting on with the game, then that's probably a good thing. We could be forever telling you about how you're getting on or how you got to Indianapolis and the Aviators over there in the Spring League. But how has it been? Because even just going through the roster, if you're to pick through your teammates there at the Aviators, you're seeing people from Boston, from Missouri, from Minneapolis, from pretty much all over the map in terms of the United States, and sticking out like a sore thumb with just Ireland beside their name is you. What's it like to be in such a, I'm not going to say a League of Nations, but to be from playing in a team that's from such a diverse background, given your background yourself, playing with people from the locality?
Yeah, it's mad. Some of the lads, I don't think they didn't have a clue where Ireland even was when I introduced myself on the first day, let alone when I said my name's Tadhg. So I'm just the nickname's Tiger now, so they're all just calling me that. It's making life easier. But being in this environment, it's I'm still wrapping my head around it. I'm probably 5 weeks into this now, and just I didn't really know what to expect, having never played football, let alone. I think just this morning we just had a little walkthrough, and half our defense has already played in the NFL. So I'm rubbing shoulders with, as you said, lads from all over the country, but lads with top end experience. So I'm just trying to soak it all up. But thankfully, being the kicker, we've limited enough things we need to know. There's no playbook for us. Just kind of kick it long and straight, and everyone be happy enough with that. It's
a remarkable journey. You started off from a very steeped in rugby family. Your dad was involved with Galwegians, your brother's obviously involved with Connacht as well, Dara most recently. It's been quite the journey. You managed to break the breakthrough at Connacht, but ultimately injuries kind of took their toll.
Yeah. Unreal time kind of going through the Connacht and the underage system there back home. But yeah, as so many lads, kind of injuries happen. But thankfully for me, on the back of that, I kind of broadened my horizon a little bit, and it gave me the chance to go to do something new. And that was initially I played out in Italy, signed for an Italian team, was there for a bit. Unfortunately, injuries followed me there. But through that injury, I ended up getting my shoulder reconstructed, and then that allowed me. I was going to be out of the game for at least a year with that, so that allowed me to move to the States to study. So that was 2016, I think. I moved over here, moved to study, and since then, kind of professional rugby's taken off in the States. Got a bit involved with the US Men's Eagles, the national team, and COVID hit, and then football opened up. So yeah, it's been a mad journey, wild one, but unreal experiences though that come with that. So I'm just happy to be kind of just seeing where this takes me. Is that a family thing? Is that are the Leader clan a kind of an outward-looking group that they would go and seek opportunities wherever they might come, or were you the kind of lone wolf who decided to head off and forge his own path? No, I think it's in the family. I know Mum, she's from Loughrea in Galway. I know she left, but she was like 18 and moved abroad to London on her own and just figured it out. So I know it's been in the blood in that regard. And funnily enough, you mentioned Dara there. He unfortunately had to retire there last year due to injury, but he's out here in the States now at Clemson University coaching rugby and doing his master's. So no, I think we've been pretty good just to kind of pack our bags and see where it'll take us. And yeah, since moving to the States, just more and more doors have kind of kept on opening through sport or education. So why not take advantage of them when I can? I'll be a long time retired. Exactly. The move to America in the first place, because you were playing in Boston, you were studying and stuff like that, and you were basically almost kicked off a team because you were overly qualified, because you'd played on a professional level. So they thought, yeah, listen, mate, you're almost a ring. We're kind of thinking of the professional baseball players who come in and play for Mr. Burns' team in The Simpsons. You were almost like that kind of figure. You're fair play. You've done your research, yeah. So that's kind of that happened there. But then again, kind of continue with that theme. Well, basically with that, it's just in American sports is a scholarship system, and the fact that kind of rules and regulations. So unfortunately, due to my background playing back home there, and in Italy, I was deemed ineligible to play collegiate sports. But that opened up, again, wasn't ideal, but I ended up getting into coaching, and I loved that. And also at that same time, I had more time on my hands than I expected. So I ended up doing some actually sports agency work, which was quite cool because I was doing my sports management degree. And funnily enough, one of the first players I worked with and sent over to Europe, he actually just won a Heineken Cup medal at the weekend. So pretty random how he was 17 at the time. I remember he went to Toulouse, and but anyway, through rugby, one door closed in that regard, but then coaching and the agency thing opened up, and then I guess I've been fortunate when one door is closed. Just I've got lucky to a degree that another opportunity is opened, and then just trying to kind of put your head down and just make the best out of it. What's working in sports agency like? Tough. Yeah. Hard to know what to believe at times, to be honest with you. Because I've been through it as a player, so it's quite interesting to actually get a little bit of a look at it, vantage point from the kind of inside. Yeah. And yeah, trying to be, I think, the best agents, you want them to be as honest with you as possible versus kind of selling you something that might necessarily be happening. So that was something that that I tried to kind of pride myself on when I was doing that. But yeah, really interesting. And I worked with a few Irish guys actually that ended up going on to Zebre. A guy Kieran Gaffney from Galway and Rory Prater, another Irish lad. So it was cool. Really good experiences. It just again happened pure random on the back of being ineligible to play college rugby. So I had more time on my hands, and America's full of talented players and athletes, but they didn't necessarily have the connections to go overseas. So yeah, I got to connect the dots for a little bit there before Major League Rugby came along. So I had to hang up my agency boots and jump back into playing professionally.
It is something that's building there, though, kind of slowly and steadily. The Major League Rugby thing, I guess they've learned a couple of lessons from how they managed to build soccer, managed to build that product over there, and essentially sell it as a product and make it something that can be identifiable to the public. And they seem to be doing a better job from the outside looking in. I don't know what you made of it.
Yeah, it's definitely it's growing. There's still, being on the inside, there's obviously a lot of things that still need to be, a lot of work to be done in terms of if you want to compare, at least from the athletes, the players' point of view, to what you'd expect back there being in the provinces. But, there's always going to be growing pains. But then from the, just the product itself on the pitch, it's getting better. The likes of Matt Giddo and stuff are all over here playing. Bastero was here last year, so some big names out here. And then I think fans are definitely, I think it's just about exposing them to the sport, because, they all love football. Like everyone here loves football. So just the idea of, rugby being constant does not, as I'm learning here, these games, it's constant stop-start, timeouts all the time. So it's just so the game itself, takes so long. There's no kind of fluidity to it. So I think with the rugby, that is something a lot of the American fans, when they actually watch it for the first time, alongside getting the contact, and they love the scrums and lineouts, but just the constant pace and the hitting that comes with it. So I do think there's definitely good infrastructure in place now to keep building upon it. But I think it still has a long way to go to I think be a top league. But it's going in the right direction.
From an American point of view, does it benefit or is it hurt by those comparisons with American football?
I think you can kind of like draw certain parallels in terms of explaining it initially. Everyone talks about the contact element, which kind of draws people in. You talk about not wearing pads. So then, as I hear all the time, American people would see rugby and they go, "Oh, you guys are crazy," because they're used to seeing guys in pads running into each other. So you get that. Granted, I've never been a big fan of all the contact playing 10, but they do love that point of view. I think it's easier to understand. One thing you're going to see a lot now on the back of football, that is. But one thing is, sevens is quite decent here. Sure. The US national team does quite well, so that's an easier form of the game to digest and understand what's actually happening. But and a lot of crossover athletes are happening now. So no, I think there's pros and cons, but I find it easier to kind of maybe explain the game a little bit, at least initially, what rugby is kind of about. You do rely on some of those football things, but obviously there's a lot more detail beyond that.
Of course, yeah. Like you ended up playing for the USA Eagles. That had to have been something of a bizarre experience. Seemed to have been something that I guess was almost thrown at you rather than you kind of sought out.
Yeah, so initially I was aware because AJ McGinty, he was a Irish player, moved over to study in the States, and he went to, I think, 2015 World Cup. And he had an unreal tournament, and then went on to play for Connacht and won the Pro 12 at the time. So I was aware of what he did. But once I got over, so I knew there was a potential pathway. But once I got over here and was deemed ineligible to play college rugby, I wasn't playing rugby at all then. I was playing a local D3 men's team who I was also coaching. So I wasn't playing rugby. So there's 2 years there where I, as I said, was doing the coaching stuff and the agency stuff, and just enjoying rugby, but not from a playing point of view, because obviously the level wasn't great. But really fun. I had great crack doing that. We won a national championship with that team, and a lot of fun doing that. But level of play wasn't great. So when Major League Rugby came along, I kind of was assigned for San Diego and was kind of back on the horse a little bit then, and back into full time rugby. And then I had to become eligible with World Rugby, and that wasn't a straightforward process. It was kind of back and forth quite a while with paperwork and documentation, and under the 3-year rule. So that wasn't easy. And actually, the first time near the end of this process, Ireland were actually playing against the Eagles in Dublin probably late 2018. So that was my first experience with the Eagles. Although I wasn't, fully eligible yet, they flew me over for that game, and I was with the team for that week, the lead up to the game. So that was very cool to be part of that. Let alone against Ireland. So that was a great experience. And then fast forward a month or two after that, I became eligible, and I was coming off the bench playing against Chile down in South America. So it was all I didn't even know they had a rugby team, to be honest with you. So it was all a bit random how quickly it all happened. But again, I think next week we had Argentina again down there, the Argentina A team, and so those experiences, unreal, amazing. It's amazing. The idea of leaving rugby, which I unfortunately have to do, but to pursue this, but having at least kind of got those experiences of playing at that level. Obviously would like more of it, but things happen. I've been as I mentioned already, now I've just kind of pivoted it when certain doors open. But playing international rugby with the Eagles was fast, and there's quite a good Irish contingent on the team as well. So
of course,
made life easier, adjust to that.
It's got to be a bizarre experience nonetheless, though, to be warming up at the Aviva Stadium and you're almost wearing the wrong colours in so many words.
Yeah, and I know a few of the lads I know, they're Finley, and there's a few lads that are playing for Ireland that day, and Richie Murphy, he's the Ireland kicking coach, I believe, or skills. Remember, he looked at me because he looked to me kind of like, what are you doing? Because I would have crossed paths over the years, and it's kind of, what are you doing here with the US? So I did have that, and one or two people in the stand actually that I knew, they had no clue I was with the Eagles team, and just shouting at me and heading over to them and them asking what's going on, and me not really having a great answer, just kind of 3 or 4 days ago I was in class in St. Louis, Missouri, and I got a call to get on get to the airport as quick as possible, and then over I went to Dublin. So it was all a bit mad, but again, a class and unreal to have had those experiences.
Of course, yeah. Did you have any input or any conversations with Luke Carty, who we saw this week being named in a developmental squad for the United States? I know you came up with Jack around the same time as him. Did you manage to have any conversations with him and describe to him what the situation is like over there, or are you letting him plough his own furrow?
Actually, so for the last, since he came over and he's been doing very well for LA, I've been obviously in this full-time football environment, so I haven't really been. I haven't chatted to many of the lads at all, to be honest. But it's good. It's fair play to him. I think he'll do well, especially getting into the squad at a good young age. If there's anything I could have changed, it would have been nicer probably, to get in when you're in your early 20s versus your late 20s. But I'm sure he'll do well, and be looking for, and he's out there. There's a few Irish lads out there in LA playing in the Major League Rugby and judging by their Instagram, they're having a great old time.
How did you get noticed kicking balls by people who are involved in American football? Because it's one thing to be an out half, and as you mentioned there, there's a lot of processes involved in kicking, and it's a very different discipline, because there's a lot of curve involved in the ball and there's a lot of kicking from different positions, whereas American football is a little bit more straightforward. Were you just booting a ball and somebody put their hand to their chin and went, maybe this guy could work in American football? Or was it a little bit more complicated than that?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't much more complicated than that. I'd been advised, to give it a go. But this is when I was playing rugby. I was playing Major League Rugby. Yeah. Was about to get caps and stuff like that. So everything was great. So I wasn't even looking into it. But then, kind of when COVID hit, I honestly just went to scratch the itch, because people had told me to do it. So I just went down and kicked some footballs at a local high school in Boston, and had all my steps all wrong. I was having all these rugby steps, which is very different to football. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I was able to hit them pretty well. And again, I didn't really know how good I was, but it was quite a funny experience, because typically here at the high schools you have a running track as well on the outside. And there's people heading around the running track, and they stopped their walking or running, came over and just watching me kick and standing there asking questions. And by the end of it, there was a decent amount of people just watching me kick there. And then I thought, maybe there is more to this than, maybe I'm better than probably I thought I was, or I didn't really know the level, to be honest with you. Yeah. So I didn't know what I was doing was where that stacked up against, good guys. So that's just how it started. And then I just kept exploring it, looking into it. There's a kicking coach out in San Diego, He kicked in the NFL for 23 years. So I said, you know what, if I'll go out there and meet him. So just pack my bags, go up to San Diego, train there for a week, and he trains a lot of the current NFL guys. So I was kicking with a lot of them and the free agents. Free agents meaning guys that aren't signed, but they're kind of around that level, and stacked up pretty well. And that was only back in late November. So then basically the month of December, and the feedback was there's definitely enough ability there to give this a go. So then in December I had to make the decision: am I going playing rugby, or am I going to give this football stuff a crack? And I just thought, if not now, I'll never get the opportunity again to do this. So then I moved up to San Diego in January full time, and then the last 6-8 weeks I've been in this spring league playing. So that's kind of how all that transpired.
Yeah, that kind of coaching, that kind of one-on-one, especially expertise from people who've worked in the NFL, that usually doesn't come cheap.
No, it does not. Or renting an apartment in San Diego for 2 or 3 months and all that crack. So no, it does not. But I guess I just thought of it, as like an investment in myself. And if this works out, it'll be fantastic. Even if it does, it does. If it doesn't, I've still had these unreal and amazing experiences. But I still think there's a good road ahead for me. But yeah, the American coaches and the cost that comes with playing sport here until you're in the professional level is hard to fathom.
That's not just like from the coaching point of view. Like it's costly kind of across the board.
Well, the coaching. One of the coaches is charging like $1,200 for a session, so that's expensive. But then, yeah, just all the stuff that comes with that. In terms of the good thing is a lot of the stuff we do initially, from a kicking perspective, thankfully we don't always have to wear the pads and the helmet and all that kind of stuff. At least initially, when they're assessing you as kickers, you're playing Gaelic football. You're just in your shorts and your t-shirt, so that's grand. But my first time putting on helmets and pads was the week of my first game, so that was a different experience. It's kind of, the helmet reminded me a bit of hurling, but there's nothing to compare to wearing these massive pads on your shoulder.
Without wanting to make the comparison, my littlest lad, when he got his first hurling helmet, wore that around the house pretty much all day. Was it a case when you got your first set of pads in your helmet that you, just for the sheer weirdness of having that stuff on you, did you have to spend a decent chunk of time getting used to it, or did you throw it on and off and go, okay, Grant, I can get on with this down the road?
No, once I got it all, I had it on as much as I could, because just to kind of get used to that big shell. And as I said, it's like somewhat like hurling, but it's more round and it's heavy. So getting used to that, and then the pads, just your range of motion. Thankfully, as kickers, we don't have to wear the massive pads the lads wear that have taken contact. But no, it does take getting used to it. And especially now, we're training here most days, it's 30 plus degrees Celsius, so you become very aware of them. But to be honest, in the heat of the moment, in terms of kicking, I don't really notice them that much. But just looking them around, and then trying to get lads to help me put them on and things like that, I'm still learning tricks of the trade in that regard. You can always tell the Irish fellow over the sideline, he has two people helping me get the stuff on. But yeah, it's a different world.
On the coaching side of things, I know you had a decent old hoof on you, like you could kick the ball 60 odd yards. But in terms of approach and how you go about all that kind of stuff, were they trying to knock bad habits out of you? Were they trying to pick up on stuff that they thought you did well that you can build upon? What was the kind of coach building towards you being a kicker?
Yeah. So initially, it was things were moving pretty quick, because if you're getting good foot to ball contact, regardless of the angle or amount of steps you take leading up to it, if you're getting that piece of the puzzle right, you're going to have pretty decent outcomes. But then once I got more and more into this, you start to realize, okay, now in a real game scenario, you have 1.2, 1.3 seconds between the ball being snapped. So the guy throwing it between his legs back to the holder who catches it, who then places it for me to kick. 1.2, 1.3 seconds. That's rapid. The margin for error, there isn't. You're a split second off and you're getting blocked. So that was a huge thing I had to learn with the rugby, taking 4 steps back and 4 to the side. You can't do that here, because you're going to take too long. So I had to change up things like that. There's certain things we do in rugby that I'd be deemed an unorthodox kicker, meaning I'm kind of more comfortable kicking a little bit more my hips towards the sideline, which would be it's kicking and punting, which would be more like kicking a Gaelic football. A lot of time your kind of hips a little bit sidewards, which a lot of the coaches wouldn't advise that. Just because the American guys are a lot more robotic. If you ever watch them, their style is very square to the ball, which is just weird. For me, it's again, I think playing Gaelic football and rugby, we didn't really kick it like that ever. So I had to try and adjust that a little bit, but they recognised that the way I was doing it. It was the ball was going. The main thing is getting it high enough, because you have a 6'8" Olympic level athlete 8 yards away from you who's jumping, so you got to get it up over him as well. So first thing is getting it high enough, and then obviously getting it straight. And I was doing that, so thankfully they didn't try and change too much. If I was younger, they probably would have, but thankfully I didn't have to go on that road too much. But it's the timing. Timing is everything in this.
And with that in mind, essentially it's not just up to you, like between with the person snapping, the person holding, and then you as a unit have to be working in absolute lockstep.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really appreciate, watching lads kick or watching a bit of football and the guy would miss a kick. I'd often think, I reckon I could score that, or you have those thoughts just even before I knew anything about football. But now being in this environment, you realise, like if your snapper takes 0.7 or 0.75 of a second, now he's taken 0.5 of a second or 0.05 of a second off of me, which, as I said, in the grand scheme of things, if you take 1.34 seconds, you're probably getting blocked. And I found it hard to wrap my head around that, like thinking 0.02, 0.03 of a second, like what? Is how much of a difference really? But it's absolutely huge. So you have to have huge trust in them, because essentially, for once the call goes, I'm back in my stance and I kind of do what I need to do, and then once I'm ready to go and I give that nod, when the ball is passed, when the ball snapped back, I'm approaching a ball that isn't set yet, isn't on the ground yet. So it's only that last step into the ball where that ball is firmly on the ground, and then I like the ball leaned a little bit, which means my holder has to try and put a little bit of an angle on it, whilst also the laces on the football, getting the laces of the ball kind of away from my foot, because you don't want to kick that. So the margin, like the timing and the trust you have to have in those lads is huge. So whilst all the big lads are off running their routes or doing the defensive stuff, we're kind of over in the sideline, just keep repping out that timing, because as I've learned in training, you're off by the smallest of margins, and some fella's getting his hand to it.
Is it important then to build those kind of personal relationships? Because the thing you always see about American football is it's offense and defense, and you've got people sitting on the sideline essentially for half the game, yada yada yada. But the reality of it is that you need to be really simpatico with everything that's going on around you, and that you need to be with those three people especially, able to get on with them and able to convey what you need from your snapper, from your placer, to get the job done.
Yeah, we spend. It's different because coming from rugby, everyone's very connected on the team, unless you split to backs and forwards. Beyond that, most of the drills you're doing, whether it's like breakdown or whatever, passing, tackling, you're usually together and the team's mixed. Like backs and forwards, everyone's in the same boat. Whereas here, it's very much three separate teams: offense, defense, and special teams. So. Yeah, you don't have the same connection with the way you'd have a connection with lads in the rugby team with most guys. You can't really have that here because there's just too many. There's too many guys to have that. So as you said, just for me, it's all about the snapper and holder. So we're going for coffees together, we're going for breakfast and things like that, and just becoming good mates with them. But just so it makes it easier in the game, because the first game when the coach shouted out field goal, and I'm sitting down there drinking my water and just watching. Things get pretty chaotic pretty quickly, and especially you have at the time we had 20 seconds to get on, get everything done, and get our kickoff before the clock ran out. So having complete trust with those two lads, the snapper and holder, is critical, because if you don't, you're going to hesitate, and if you hesitate, you're blocked.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Put your best face